We'd like to call to order our Abington School Committee meeting for Tuesday, May 28th. And we have some visitors here with us today, the half-day program of our kindergartners from the center school, and they are going to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, and justice for all.
Thank you.
So I'd like to thank the school committee for inviting us to come and share our program with you. We're very excited about our show, Once Upon a Farm, which is actually our own version of The Little Red Hen. In our reading series, we read the book, The Little Red Hen, and then we researched some other versions of The Little Red Hen, and we were very excited when we went on our first field trip to the Abington Public Library, and the librarian's first choice of books was to read us The Little Red Hen Makes a Pizza. So we've had a lot of opportunities to see different versions of The Little Red Hen. So we decided that we wanted to write our own version, and we decided to include some things that we learned as part of our bucket filling that we've learned about this year. It's been the theme of our year, and it's been a philosophy that has been adopted at Center School. So the children made the mural, made the puppets, and helped write the words for the performance. So I hope you enjoy it. You guys can stand up. So they can stand.
Once upon a time, there lived a little red hare family who lived on the farm with their friends. The cows, the pigs, the sheep, and the horses. One day when the little red hen was walking along, she found some birds away. She brought them back to the farm and asked her friends, and that's just what they did. The little red hen and her family planted, watered, weeded, and cared for the wheat until it grew tall and golden. The little red hen asked her friends, "Who will help me water the wheat?" "Moo, not us." "Oh, not us." "Not us." "Nay, not us." "Then we'll do ourselves." And that is just what he did. The little red hen planted wheat and ground it into flour. The little red hen asked her friends, "Who will help me?" "Moo, not us." "Not us." "Not us." "Not us." And that's just what they did.
Then we'll do it.
When the farm was filled with the most delicious smell of the bread, the little red hen asked once again, "Who will help me?"
Oh,
We will. We will. We will. There we will.
horses. We will. Okay, Little Red. Little Red.
And that's just what they did. But the next day, when the Lord had found some kids to eat and asked, like,
You're going to ask, who will plant them?
we will. We learn about fun stuff.
Okay, guys.
It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us, by and by. It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us, by and
Thank you very much, and that ends the performance. So I'm just going to dismiss the animals one by one.
Before you go, I want to thank you so much for coming, kindergartners. You did a great job. Thank you very much.
And we did get the performance on the education channel and the access, so if you want to see it at home, friends and relatives, it's going to go viral, I can tell. Is there an extra seat that people could sit in as they present, or should we bring the podium over?
I think everybody's used to the podium.
That's our big joke. There we go.
Weekend we have graduation. Is there a microphone? Kids is kindergarten. Ready?
He's doing it. Back on. So now, we'll hear from visitors. We'd like to have our hearing of visitors now for this evening. Seeing them, we'll move on to our reading and approval of records. Yep, May 10th, 2013, regular school committee meeting. Motion to approve the minutes of May 10th as presented or amended.
Can I just on the second page, the members of the, as far as the preferences for subcommittees, can we include that attachment as far as either that or give people a reference to who's on what?
Yep.
The subcommittee list.
Yeah, can we include that with the,
When I post that, I can certainly include a list.
okay.
Yes, actually, I have this here. So
Okay. Thank you. So a motion made by Mike and
Second.
seconded by Kathy. Ellen abstaining. All listening, yeah. All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you. The minutes from April 23rd. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at those? Any changes? All set? Okay. Motion to approve the minutes of April 23rd, 2013 as presented. Ellen, second.
I'll make second.
Mike, all in favor?
Yeah,
Paul has to abstain, right? He wasn't in yet. And the same for the, our special meeting, April 22nd. Make a motion?
Make
Kathy?
motion.
Kathy's first, second.
I'll second.
Mike, all in favor? Thank you. Now we move on to our principal reports. We'll have Dr. Rich from the Central Elementary School.
Bring it up in this one. Okay.
Oh, the behind the,
Go.
there's a clicker.
I stole it.
Improvise.
All right.
I can, while we're waiting, oh, here we go. Okay, so after having a year already at center school, And last year was the first year of the school council, and we identified areas of need based on a survey that we sent to parents asking what their most, or the things that they saw as most important for school improvement or for us to work on and be cognizant of at center school. So we used that to guide along with the strategic plan and the district goals. And then for this year, as we look to next year, we've had 2 years down now that we were able to really refine the things that we'd like to continue to work on and things that we felt we've already accomplished and still need to refine a little bit more. So our first goal was to improve student achievement in all areas of development. So that means not just in the academics, not the cognitive domain. We also now have started to look at the social studies and science and the social emotional component. That's really important for kids at this level. What the teachers had found in some of their research, starting the year for SMART goals, as we started that conversation, was that the behavioral and social emotional needs of kids at this age are really important and really impact academic achievement in later years. So we looked at that and we felt that that was a really important area for us to look at this early level. Social studies and science, because we do have Storytown and everyday math, we felt that we wanted to really build up those areas as well. Even though we use the frameworks as our curriculum and the resources that we provide in terms of Storytown or everyday math are simply resources that we use to enhance instruction and deliver the instruction to the students. So that's why we wanted to focus on social studies, science, and the behavioral, social, emotional component over at center school. Differentiating the instruction to meet all of the needs, because we do have some diversity over there as far as different modalities that the students need over there because of their learning styles. And so to do that, we needed some time. Now we'll be implementing the data teams. So we'll need some consistent time for the teachers, because center school is a little bit different. The students don't have music and art, so we need to be a little bit creative in how we've come up with mutual time that works for them, that they can meet and have the discussions around data for their social skills, for the students' social skills, as well as just overall achievement. So for that first one, we're also implementing the social skills improvement system in both preschool and kindergarten. We purchased it to be used for next year. We'll be doing some PD in that. And again, that is looking at their social skills, how they're interacting, what coping skills and what mechanisms they have in interacting with each other, so that they can be successful learners in the classroom, and there is nothing holding them back socially or emotionally and getting in the way of learning. So we'll also be continuing on, and later in the improvement plan, I'll talk about the bucket filling program we started. Okay. So the other goal that we felt was important to keep was integrating technology. This was a big one for this year that we worked on, and then we will continue to look forward to. So we're increasing the type and the use of technology and software available. So we're using iPads now. Every classroom has an iPad with identified apps that are appropriate and academically appropriate for the students to use. They were researched, and we did have a packet from North River Collaborative that we used as the basis to select which ones were appropriate. They are not just games with no rationale behind them. And with the help of Aaron in technology, we were able to, narrow down what would be most effective for center school students. And then, again, to provide the necessary training for not only the iPads, but also for the teachers to have their websites, and provide opportunities for the teachers to be engaged in some professional development around technology that would be helpful. So in there too, over at Center School, we use a lot of visuals for the students to acquire language and just to help them behaviorally. So some of the things that we're looking into is using the Board Maker program for all of the teachers, because the students, if you're not familiar with the early learners, a lot of them, they need visual schedule boards. They need agendas, visual agendas. They need, even just for their behavior management, we have one student that rides the bus, and she needs a visual board to keep her behavior in line for the bus. So when she gets off the bus and we ask the bus driver how she did, she gets a star. And they're just visual schedule boards that the children can take with them. So even having that, it has been very helpful, and we'll look to increasing our ability to be able to do that for these kids so that they are coming to school ready to learn and they are able to learn across the day. Our third goal, reinforcing the principles of good citizenship and nurture the values of respect, consideration, and tolerance for others. So what we've done here, we integrated the bucket filling program at Center School. I think I talked a little bit about it when I came earlier for NAEYC. And that the behavior is really important at this age, because what we say for kids ages 3 to 6, we can't expect them to come to school and know how to behave. They're learning how to behave from us. They're learning how to interact from teachers, from any adult that's in their life. So we felt it was really important that we incorporate a character development program, but a behavioral program. So it's school-wide, and it also goes to the home. We have, it's embedded throughout the day. The bus drivers are on board with us with this program. And then slowly we rolled it out so that every month it was a new component. So there's no character theme with this. It's simply good behavior fills a bucket. And that's what we do. I make announcements every week, what students from what classrooms the teachers select, but we also make sure that every child in the building has their name announced. We give them opportunities. It's almost like we set the students up for that positive. We look for ways that we can recognize the good behavior and reinforce it for them. And it has really created an atmosphere over there. I know Dr. Thomas calls it Happyville, but this morning I was just saying it's the happiest place. I think it's even better than Disney World, being over at Center School, but it's really, you can really see the changes and the difference it made this year compared to last year. So we're really focusing on that. And the other thing that we wanted to continue on with was the recycling. It's amazing. We had, I don't know if that's the same. Oh, okay, just split the page. So as far as that too, it's really funny. Somebody from the Board of Health was over and said, these kids actually do it better than the high school kids. They're so I'm sorry, but they just love. They have their visuals on the trash cans and on the receptacles, and and they are just so concerned about getting it wrong and wanting to do it right. So it's really great that that's something that we're continuing to do, and for them to recognize the importance of recycling. So the next thing that we're continuing on over there, and we'll take it even a little bit more, the monthly spirit days. This year our PTO was really active, and they did spirit days with the students, and we kind of looked at how we could tweak it a little bit for next year to continue on. And every Wednesday at Center School, the students wear their shirt that says, "I'm a bucket filler," and all the staff wears their shirt. It says staff on the back. So it really builds up a sense of community for them. So the fourth goal, providing appropriate school facilities and a healthy and safe learning environment. One of the things we want to look to is doing a Center School Earth Day celebration. So that would be incorporating our character development program, the bucket filling program, and the recycling all in one. So that would kind of be the culminating activity from the previous goals, and to enhance the appearance and the interior of Center School. We do have some middle school students that created murals as part of their Girl Scout. They needed their next badge, so they'll be presenting those to staff. And then just little things along the way. I know Mrs. Hoyt had talked about getting some things for the outside just to make it look a little bit different, more kid-friendly than just the brick building out there. So we're looking at things like that. Publicizing the NutriKids cafeteria payment option. We felt that was still, some of the parents may still lose that. We have a lot of students that come in midway through the year. Because we have ongoing enrollment, because it is tuition-based, and then we also have students not necessarily in the preschool that access the food service program, but there may be students based on their disabilities that may need to be there full day, and maybe for older kids that are there that they have in the system. It's really important for them to know. So we felt that was important. The fifth goal, to continue to build on the tradition of community support. So one thing that I feel that the staff and just the community of Center School does really well is to access the community and to get them involved. So we're going to continue with that. So using the website to communicate with the community. We've started with, we have the virtual tour on the website now. We do have a Facebook page now that we'll start incorporating next year, the Twitter, and using Constant Contact more to get more communication out as far as other programs too that parents can access and resources. And then encourage the involvement of the senior center and high school students and other community members. And that's just, we'd love to have people from the community in and helping and just being a part of the community over there. So we'll continue with that. We haven't been too lucky with getting senior citizens in, but I'm not giving up. And then also keeping the community informed through the phone calls, Constant Contact, newsletters, notices, things like that. And then hosting activities and events. We are still having our community, it's called the CFCE grantee, Coordinated Family and Community Engagement. She comes once a month on a Friday to do different story times, and it's for any residents of Abington with children of the age that she'll do story time for. So it really opens it up so that we can get these families, they are in the town, and eventually the kids will be in our school system. If they're not in preschool already with us, then maybe we can appeal to them and have them come into our program, but they are, we still consider them part of the school community.
That's
it.
Question?
Yes.
Can you tell a little bit, you said the newly purchased social skills improvement system. What is that, and how did we come to it? And
Sure. So last year, Cindy Wilson and Nancy Clancy, two teachers, wanted to take on researching different assessment tools that were out there, and if there were any that we were lacking and didn't have. So if you're familiar with the early childhood age, we have to do screenings, we do child find, and we have a lot of assessment tools that we use even as part of the regular special education evaluation. We didn't have anything that assessed the behavior and the social and emotional skills solely. So what they did is they came across this one. We talked about it. I looked at everything that they brought to me. They had it all in a nice binder. And as a staff, we determined that makes sense, that we really need something, a tool. So what it is, the teachers will be observing the students at the beginning of the year. They'll take a baseline, then midway through the year. And at different points in the year, they'll monitor the behavior so that they can see, improvement. And it's more interactions.
in there every day,
And
the
it's-
children with each other, their peers,
Mhm.
day in, day out?
The component, they'll also have, the teachers will do direct teaching of a skill. And off the top of my head, please forgive me, I can't think of one specifically. There will be scenarios. They have CDs that come with so the children will get to watch. So we've said a lot. At this age, it's really great to use video modeling so that they can see situations and then be able to retell what is wrong. So then you can really assess, too, if they can differentiate the right from wrong in a scenario and where you need to go back and reteach. So they'll have different scenarios that the students will watch, short clips, maybe a minute, minute and a half, after the teacher teaches them about a certain skill, turn taking, things like that.
And are all three, preschool K and?
Preschool and K.
Both
Mhm.
using.
Both of them will have this.
Does anyone have any questions? for
It is-
Dr. Rich?
There's 5 goals. Is there any significance between goal 1 and goal 5 as far as the order goes? I mean,
No.
they're just
No.
randomly placed? I just had, on the, as far as goal 4, the NutriKids, and you referenced access the website. Which website is that?
The Abington Public Schools website.
Okay, all right. Because you, on the next page, you do, on goal
We
5, you
list them.
have the website. And just,
Right.
there's an extra period in there.
Okay.
This is Abington period, PS period. Just on that.
Oh, I see.
It's
PS,
just
it
Abington
is.
PS, yeah. And then just, again, this is my, just trying to understand, as far as if you get volunteers to come in, is there a query done? So under that one there, encourage the involvement of seniors, would a query be done on everybody that comes into the school
Yes.
to do that?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're
Oh,
welcome.
and just so, I'm on the committee next year, so.
Great.
Yes, so I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Come to Happyville.
That's right.
How many iPads do you have over there? I know you said,
We now have, let's see, our nurse, the PTO just approved that, buying one for the nurse. So each classroom, there's 8, both the speech therapist, 10, and then we'll have 11.
Just want to comment, the success of the center school is also seen in the number of people who are registering for
Yes.
your program for next year. So,
Yes.
obviously, things are going well in, what are we calling it, Happy Land?
Happyville.
Happyville.
Happyville,
So
the
things are
happiest
going
place
well
on
in
earth.
Happiest place on
Happyville Because people are signing up, so.
Yes, we do. As of right now, and just so the committee knows, we have, where we are right now with enrollment, we've exceeded where we were last August and then the August prior. So we anticipate, we usually get about 20 more enrollments over the summertime, so we anticipate the number significantly increasing, which is, it's great.
I think besides being happy for, especially working parents and good full-day kindergartens, I mean, they're talking about what's the best program, where you go, where did you send, or where did you, in the neighborhoods, where did you send your child? So obviously, we're getting a very good reputation about educating our children at that very early age
Yep.
and retaining them. So kudos to you and your staff, and thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Rich? Okay. Then we'd like to, if we could have a motion to accept the 2013-14 Central Elementary School School Improvement Plan as presented or amended.
Make the motion.
Kathy first, second? Second. Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
And now we're moving around on the agenda just a little, and we'd like to introduce Denise Boyd, who's going to give us the proposed revisions to the Abington Public School Wellness Policy.
Bernie Darcy,
And Bernie Darcy. Sorry about
Director
that.
of Food Service.
So,
Hi, good evening. I think I know everybody at the table, maybe Mr. Korowski and Mr. Haggerty. I don't think I've met before, but nice to meet you, Jamie and everybody else. Good to see you. Before we get into the wellness policy revisions, I did want to highlight a couple of the programs that took place this year in the wellness department, if I could. First of all, we're in year 3 of the STRIDE grant. STRIDE stands for Students Taking Responsibility for Individual Diet and Exercise. And it was a 3-year North River Collaborative grant. It was a $2 million grant that was split between 5 towns. Along with Abington was Avon, East Bridgewater, Whitman-Hanson, and Rockland. And we benefited greatly from this grant, and I just wanted to tell you a couple of the things that we received because of this grant. For 2.5 years, we've had an elementary staff, Chris Turner has been funded from the North River Collaborative. And without Chris, we had had layoffs prior to that. So without Chris, it really would have been a problem if we didn't get that money for the grant to fund him. We received $10,000 for equipment, $2,500 the first 2 years, and $5,000 this year. And we were able to pick up a lot of big-ticket items, which usually aren't in our budget, things like treadmills, spinning bikes, ping pong tables, the bigger items. So that was a great help to us. As far as our professional development went, they ran 2 workshops for us, the entire wellness department of all 5 towns together, and even opened them up to some of the other towns. And it's just great to get, not only with your own colleagues, but to bounce ideas and things off of your other colleagues in other towns. So it was really very helpful. We talked about phys ed and technology, about nutrition, assessment, all sorts of wonderful programs. They offered some professional development also online that not only the teachers were able to take, but there are a number of nurses here in the district that also took some of the courses. And they paid, I think the courses were $150, and they paid $100 of it toward the course. So that, again, was great for us. We've had a 4-member team work on curriculum the last 3 summers. This will be the 3rd summer, the final summer. Karen Dacey, myself, Doreen Langer, and Rebecca Pulkinen. And we've revamped our health and phys ed curriculum with that money. So we'll put in our final 20 hours this summer. That will be at the end of that money. There's been training at the elementary for the recess aides. And I know at Beaver Brook this has been great, where the recess aides are actually conducting organized games and activities during recess. So it's taken away a lot of the problems that sometimes arise at recess time. Before and after school programs have also been available at no cost to the students. This year, Beaver Brook ran a program 4 days a week, 2 days for the 3rd graders and 2 days for the 4th graders. There were, I believe, just about 50 students in both sessions. And again, it was an hour before school at the Beaver Brook, free to students. At the middle school, the Frollo, Matt Campbell and myself ran 2-day fitness club. Lauren Peruzzi ran a running club and a yoga Zumba. And then at the Woodsdale, Chris Turner also ran an hour and 15 minutes, 3 days a week, an after-school fitness club. So that, obviously, at no cost to any of the students involved, was great to get the extra activity in. They also, one of the last things they did as a group, the administrators of the STRIDE grant wrote a sample wellness or model wellness policy, because all the towns were in the middle of revamping theirs. So we were able to use that as a resource also when we revised ours. In return, what we had to do for the 3 years that we had the grant, we had to 4 times a year test the children in a PACER test, which is just a little 20-meter shuttle. They had to do that 5 times a year. We recorded the results, passed them in. They had to wear pedometers for, depending on their age, from 4 days at the elementary to 7 days at the middle and junior high school. They had to complete a nutrition survey and also complete a activity log, a 3-day activity log. And so we did those with the students 4 times a year as our part of the commitment. But I think I can speak for everyone in the department that we're going to be sorry to see that grant go. There's a little bit of leftover money. I heard it's going to be turned back to the towns if they can get approval on it to carry the grant maybe. And hopefully that'll go toward, funding the elementary person that we need to replace now. Another thing I wanted to tell you a little bit about was our Fuel Up to Play 60 grant. Bernie and I wrote a grant that was funded by the New England Dairy Council and the National Football League. And it was, you could receive up to $4,000 for 1 year, and we actually did receive the full $4,000. And basically what you had to do is you had to come up with what they called a fitness play and a nutrition play. And so the fitness play, what I did was I created a little fitness center in the gym at the Frollo on the stage. And there wasn't a lot of room, but they gave me $1,600 to buy equipment. And so I bought a couple bikes and some free weights and kettlebells, weighted jump ropes, bands, medicine balls, etc. And so what I did was I used that area, I called it Fitness Friday, and every Friday the classes would be up on the stage using that area like a little mini gym. And then I also use that area, Matt Campbell and myself, 2 days a week to run the fitness club. So we combined the grants a little bit. The stipends to pay for Matt and myself were paid for out of the Stride grant, and yet the equipment for the fitness play was paid for out of the Fuel Up to Play 60 grant. And they also gave us $300 to promote the fitness club. So what I did is, as the students came each week, we had them just fill out raffle tickets, and once a week we would draw names, and we'd give out fitness equipment, push-up bars or exercise bands, medicine balls, stopwatches, things like that. So we had about 35 boys and girls that participated at various times, and we just finished up last week. Now, as far as the nutrition play went, Bernie and I thought we'd start a breakfast at the Frollo, because we didn't have one. So we received $1,800, I think it was, to buy the large refrigerator that was needed to store the food for the breakfast program. First week of school, they gave us money for incentives also and to kick off the program. So the first week of school in the cafeteria, we brought the 2 grades down separately, the 8th grades and 7th grades. We had a kickoff presentation, raffled off free passes for the breakfast. We had the NFL signs and posters, and made, all sorts of, raffle prizes and things like that. And then Parents' Night, when they came at the beginning of the school year, we handed out pamphlets and brochures that New England Dairy Council had given us to promote the program. We put the notices on Constant Contact about the free breakfast, and we actually sent out letters to all the students on free and reduced lunch, because they would also receive free and reduced breakfast. So we got the word out. We also received money for raffle prizes. So again, as the students came each week to the breakfast, we put their names in a hat and raffled off iTunes cards each week. And we even had money put in there for a taste test, in which we had 7th graders come down one morning for a free breakfast, and about 75 took advantage. And then the next morning, we had 8th graders come down for the free breakfast and take advantage. We had about 55. So I think we did all we could do to get this thing going, but unfortunately, it just didn't fly. We needed about 40 to make it break even, and maybe our best day we got to 15. Some days, 2 or 3. We brainstormed, we talked with the Wellness Advisory Council, we come up with ideas, but we were limited. I think when it comes down to it, it was the starting time. And it was 10 past 7 is tough to get there, and a lot of kids are coming in on the fly, and we just couldn't make it work. Even the buses aren't always there at 10 past. It had to be, the kids that got there at 10 past had plenty of time to sit down and eat. And the kids that were there were kids that were there almost every single day, the kids that did come, but unfortunately, we just couldn't make it work, and financially, it's probably a drain right now. So we did talk a little bit. Danielle did a survey at the Beaver Brook, and we were thinking, you know what, maybe next year, if we started off at that first level, and they have more time, and their situation is different, where they can come in and sit down and eat their breakfast, and then only have to return to one room. Whereas at the middle school, if you miss homeroom, you're on the fly and you're gone for the rest of the day. We talked a little bit about a grab-and-go breakfast, but there's so many kids that have allergies, we couldn't have the kids grab the breakfast and then go into homeroom and eat it, because we'd have problems there. So unfortunately, we have a nice fridge, great fridge, that they can move down to Beaver Brook and maybe try it out there next year. Okay, in the last program, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the health fair that was done this year. It's been a while since we've had a health fair at the high school. So last year we got together and said, why don't we try it out this year? And March 20th, or Wednesday, March 20th, we had the health fair at the high school. All the students attended for one period. We started out with the seniors, then went to juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. A number of booths with a variety of presenters. There was a very interactive. Nurses were taking blood pressure, and Melanoma Foundation was there doing skin analysis. We had a company called Soul Remedy doing gait and arch analysis. There was a sports nutritionist there Kempo Karate came and gave self-defense and karate demonstrations. We had Zumba demonstrations. Abington Fire Department came, gave CPR and AED demonstrations. American Red Cross came, signed up kids for a future blood drive. South Shore Hospital was there giving information on heart and stroke. American Diabetes, Lung Association, March of Dimes, they all sent brochures and information. We also had raffle prizes for students. They collected tickets as they went around asking questions and participating in the different presentations. And the feedback was very good from not only the students but the presenters too. So I want to thank the wellness staff at the high school, Karen Dacey, Dorian Langer, and Adam for working so hard on that, and also Kate Casey, who came up from the Frollo to help out that day. So that's basically a wrap-up. I don't know if anybody has any, before I go on to the wellness policy, does anybody have any questions on any of those 3 programs that I highlighted?
Denise, on
Yeah.
you mentioned the big ticket items like the treadmills.
Mhm.
Are those, some of those at the Frollo and some at the high school? Or?
The treadmill went to the Frollo, and we had a couple of spinning bikes go to the high school, and a couple stayed at the middle school. The ping pong tables all went to the high school, the new ping pong tables. Okay, I'll go on then to talk a little bit about the Wellness Advisory Committee and Board. The original wellness policy that we have on record right now was written in 2006 and amended in 2007. And it was written following a model provided by the National Alliance for Nutrition and Activity. And we followed that, and it's a good policy. It's got everything in it, but it just really hasn't been updated. So with the passage of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, and also new Massachusetts and federal regulations that went into effect in August of 2012, so last summer, it was time to have the committee reconvene and revise the current policy that we had. So once again, we went by the National Alliance model, and also the Stride had done a model for the 5 towns. So we had the guidance, and actually the majority of the changes that were made because they were mandated by the new nutrition guidelines. And I'll let Bernie go over those in a second, but that's mostly where our changes fell. But I did add some things in. We didn't have anything in there about the wellness advisory committees. And I want to first take a moment to go over the members, because we got a lot of work done this year in the first year, and I appreciated all of our members. And we have really had a broad membership, or we now have a broad membership, and there are 11 people. Besides myself, Greg Corbett was our student rep from the high school. Bernie Darcy, of course, our food service director. Leanne Doyle, adjustment counselor from Beaverbrook. Danielle Kay, the principal now at Beaverbrook. Ellen Killian was our school committee rep. Carrie McGrath Houghton was our parent rep. Joan Smith was our school nurse, Frollo school nurse. Jessica Sullivan was there as not only a vice principal, but also the nursing department head. Dipner, of course, the assistant superintendent, and our community rep over here, Eileen Walls. So we have a broad membership now, and we added the section just to say that the Wellness Advisory Committee will develop, implement, monitor, review, and revise as necessary the school nutrition and physical education policies. Second, we put in a section on meal times and scheduling. It wasn't something that we weren't doing, it just wasn't in there. So the students have 20 minutes, it's recommended 20 minutes for lunch, the students have had that. It's recommended that you schedule lunch between 10 and 1, we have that. That you not schedule meetings or tutoring or anything like that during a student's lunchtime, obviously that's followed. The only thing that's a little bit different, and I have talked to Danielle about it and maybe try it out next year at Beaverbrook. A lot of schools are starting to schedule lunch periods after the recess. So they're doing the recess first and then sending the students to lunch. And Danielle said she might want to try that out next year. I think it calms the kids down a little bit at lunch, and also gets them out exercising and better digest when they do sit down and eat. So a lot of elementary schools are going that route, and we can talk about trying it out next year with Danielle, as she said, at Beaverbrook. The last 2 things that we're adding, food marketing in schools. Basically, we're trying to be consistent across the board in that you should always be promoting healthful foods. So we can't be marketing, during school, we can't be marketing candy bars or Diet Pepsi or things that aren't going to meet the stalker list or the U.S. dietary guidelines. So this is really just putting in writing now that low nutrition foods and beverages won't be allowed during the school day, that we should be following the guidelines that we actually now have to follow by law. And then the last is just communication with parents. Mrs. Killian had suggested that now we put this wellness policy everywhere on school websites, not only just on the main website for the schools, but also each individual school. And to get it out there even into handbooks and, as much as we can get it out there. And we've added a lot of websites and a lot of information that parents can access if they're wondering, you know what, it's a school party, it's my daughter's birthday, and, what can I send in that's a healthy snack other than my 24 chocolate cupcakes or, my 2-liter of Coke. So we've given the parents websites that they can go to and find out what healthy snacks are recommended. Or even if they just want to, pack a lunch for their sons and daughters, what should I be packing? And as long as we give them that information, I think it'll benefit all of us. And also to give information about community events. We've been pretty good about promoting. Obviously, you can't get 60 minutes of physical activity during the school day. And we've done our part promoting community activities, but maybe those things should be promoted also on our school websites. So I think we should get this policy out there so that the parents can access it. I'm going to turn the program over to Bernie right now, and he's just going to give you a little update on the dietary guidelines and the Stalker A list.
Thank you. Just want to just give a brief account of the changes that have happened in the school lunch in the past 2 years, and that will be coming up in this coming year as well. And it goes back, Denise had mentioned the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, and that was a genesis of the nutrition standards that are being implemented across the country. Right now, some of the specific things that are included in the new school laws are the whole increase in whole grain offerings and variety of fresh fruits and vegetables, different types of fruits and vegetables, a larger quantity of the fruits and vegetables are being offered at each meal, focus on lean protein choices, fat-free and low-fat milk. And some of these things we had been doing in this and other districts for a while, but it's now the standard. And reduced sodium content, and that's one of the areas where I think it won't be next year, but possibly the year after that, they're going to come in with specific sodium restrictions on the meals. This year, we implemented age-appropriate calorie limits, and it goes from elementary school, the lowest range is 550 calories, up to high school, which the top limit is 850 calories. So the average meal that's served in any given week should meet the range of age-appropriate calories. There's been a larger servings of fruit and vegetables, like I mentioned. Also, the offering of fruits and vegetables have increased. Rather than just have one vegetable of the day, we now have several. We have several fruits. We have a canned fruit and fresh fruit available on just about every line in every school. Increased protein vegetables. We now have, there's a requirement that beans have to be offered during the course of a week. And so we come up with different recipes to offer beans in a different way that hopefully would be accepted. And trying to reduce the actual serving of protein and carbohydrates. So kind of changing the shape of the plate and hopefully what the students will take. There's also been a change in what we're offering on our a la carte lines and in our vending machines. There's a restriction now on artificial sweeteners, so the different, drinks that we used to be able to offer, we can no longer offer. It's basically, I think next year it will be all plain water. Any juice has to be 100% juice and can't be any larger than 4 ounces. We have to have fresh fruits and vegetables available anywhere that we're serving a la carte items, have to be marketed and available for sale there as well. Milks can no longer be any size larger than 8 ounces. Can't serve or sell a milk that's larger than 8 ounces. And it goes on as far as there's no fried items that we can sell. Everything has to be baked. There's a restriction on the total amount of fat. And the snack items that we sell can't be greater than 35%, can't be any saturated fat. So quite a bit of restriction as far as the a la carte items that we're selling. So, to some degree they are. Not quite as much as they were. But we're working with it. Manufacturers are coming out with items now that will meet the guidelines that hopefully will spur interest on the, from the students. And we're always trying to take a look at new recipe items and roll that out as well. So, any questions on the nutrition piece?
Oh, I do. I have a question. How
Sure.
will these new guidelines for us next year affect, I know it doesn't happen at lower levels, but I know a lot of times the high school kids will do a bake sale to help, they're raising funds for their junior prom, or they're this or that. Will this in any way affect that?
There was some give and take, I think, as far as bake sales went with Department of Education. And what they're trying to stress are fundraising activities that don't involve food, that involve activity. But if it does involve food, they would want the food items to meet the same restrictions that the school has as far as selling a la carte items. So it does impact it, and kind of change.
It's also not supposed to be competition.
Exactly. Yeah, it can't be done during the day. It can't be sold on the school grounds from 30 minutes before school until 30 minutes after school. So,
Do you think that will provide for any loss of revenue to any of these classes trying to do these fundraisers?
if they depended on that type of a fundraiser in the past, definitely, yeah. There would have to be some, maybe an off-premise type, or just changing ideas, or what the
Who's
fundraiser-
responsible for monitoring that? How does that happen?
At the school building, it would be the principal.
Terry Sullivan's actually here in the audience with us, so maybe we can ask Terry too.
We're going to sell to adults.
Perfect.
Okay.
At junior parent conferences.
Well, that's what I was thinking when I was buying them. It was parent, and it's, oh, can you buy?
30 minutes after you
Yep, okay. Because it is an inexpensive way for students to earn money, for their other things. But I was thinking,
Right.
I bought a few cookies at parent teachers and at the, at the games that I was at as a parent.
And with any mandates, whether it's federal or state mandates, the final is superintendent of schools. Food service would be principal, someone that comes under the food service umbrella, principal, food service director, myself, and then Peter to oversee the following of the mandates and the guidelines. And the new nutrition guidelines have been very, very difficult for food service programs across the state to kind of retool students to want to purchase, whether it be a la carte items that are offered or the school lunches, with the changes that have happened over the last year and a half. We're following the mandates and the laws, but it is impacting the participation rate at the food service business.
And the changes came quickly in all areas. They came quickly to the school meal itself, as well as any other a la carte revenue source that we had. Everything was impacted in a short period of time. So.
And there's no impact for those students who bring their own lunch to school? They can bring whatever they wish.
Right,
Yeah, yes, they can.
that'd be parent control.
Right.
Sorry, Mike. You have to say no.
Has the, although the food, Felicia had said the participation is lowered, is the online, you can, put the money into your kid's account, is that helping? Do you think?
That helps very much, yeah. It's easy for us, it's easy for them, it's a lot quicker in the lines, there's no cash, having to be dealt with, so that's been a very, very big help, yeah.
As it has been a help for those students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch, there's no identification.
Right,
of
you
those
just punch in a
students.
number, yeah.
You punch in a number just like the person in front of you and in back of you, your parent could have put on money onto your account or not, or you receive a free reduced lunch. So that's definitely helpful. We get reimbursement for those students that receive a free reduced lunch from the state. So that's helpful.
That's a good point, that's good to hear.
Can just on the policy, Denise, you said it was originally written in 2006. It was appended in 2007. So has there been anything since then? Okay. Can I just make a recommendation that in the future, when we have policy, you just have some sort of a legend that tells the history on it, like when it was originated, because there's nothing here to tell you when the last thing was done.
Something that we would do.
Yeah, okay. And then on page 3 on follows qualifications of school food service staff, I don't see where that paragraph talks about qualifications of anybody. It's just about professional development. Was that the intention of professional development of schools food service staff? Because it's I don't see where it talks about what the qualifications are of food service staff.
Well, one
I just don't know if the-
qualification that would be in there would, they would have to take a ServSafe certification course, and we should put that,
But is that just professional development that we're offering? I mean, is it real, because I think qualifications, like what's your back, to actually get a position as a food service staff.
right.
This is really just saying, well, we offer professional development. Just trying to clarify what we're really trying to say here.
I mean, it does say staff development programs include appropriate certification and training programs for child nutrition directors, school cafeteria workers. And when we hire a cafeteria worker, for example, they need to go through ServSafe certification in order to be able to work in the cafeteria.
Right, but that's talking about a program. The caption is qualifications. I think of qualifications that you've got a 4-year degree, you've got service and food services, all the other things. I don't read it as qualifications, it's more of a,
Well, qualified so that you know what temperature the food has to be, you know how to wear the gloves, and the ServSafe program does all of those things.
Qualified nutrition professionals who administer the school
Meal program. It just
So
doesn't say
in
what
terms
those
of health standards and
qualifications
the
are.
requirements that the health department has people understand before they serve food.
The other
Yeah.
piece is that sometimes we don't have an option in terms of titles. The state gives us the titles through their regs. And so Denise, is the title qualifications or what is it?
It's worded just the way it would be in the model here.
Right.
so is this language coming from either the feds or the state?
Correct.
Correct.
Which would make sense why, it does make sense to me. Okay.
I mean, they become, I guess they don't come in qualified necessarily, they become qualified once they're in the
With
position
us.
and receive professional development.
Okay, so there's, all right, okay, I understood, okay.
And obviously, if you could hire somebody qualified to the best person for the job, we hire the best qualified people, for each job.
Right. But the qualifications may occur once they.
Okay, all
But
right.
that's what appropriate certification refers to.
Right, but I just read it as qualifications, it's like you have qualifications when you come in, not that you attain them as your work, once you get the job. And then on 4, physical activity opportunities, accordance with Massachusetts frameworks, who monitors that as far as physical activity?
That would fall under.
Because we've cut phys ed. So kids aren't getting full year of phys ed anymore. So as far as,
No, we are.
They are.
We are.
Every week they get
We
it.
are meeting our
Elementary level.
obligations.
right, but like at the middle school level, they're not. Are they? No, the only reason I asked is because I've got a son that's in 8th grade, and I asked him tonight, it says, how much phys ed you have? And he says he has it 1 term out of 3.
Right, correct.
So that's all I'm just saying is,
There's no more time requirement for physical education. The mandate is that you provide it, and there's no more time or hours connected to that. So as far as the Massachusetts frameworks go and the state law goes, we are covering it.
okay, who's responsible for monitoring that? That's all I'm,
It'd be the building principal, superintendent of schools,
okay.
so it's, we're required to have it, and we have it.
And the point is that we're meeting the mandate. However, we'd love to have more PE. But
Right.
that takes hiring more staff.
Right. Or
Hence-
taking away from something else.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So your son may view it, which is great. He only views it as going to PE once a semester. He'd probably love it all year long. That's great.
Oh, absolutely, but I don't know if people realize that kids aren't getting a full year because we've had to cut back on the budgets.
Oh, yeah.
So things have to go.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's, I mean, we try to say in here we want to get as much physical activity, but we're limited
Right.
in the resources that we have.
But at the same time, we want to reassure you in that we are limited. We're limited across the board
Right.
here. We're still meeting regulations.
Oh, absolutely,
But a
yeah, I'm
very
just,
creative solution, I think, that you provided was training the recess people who are supervising to actually run activities with kids, so kids are involved in organized, thoughtful things at recess and not just either standing around or having a rock fight at recess.
and then I just, one other one, on physical activity and punishment, I just need some clarification on this. It says teachers and other school and community personnel will not use physical activity, for example, running laps, push-ups, withhold opportunities for physical activity as punishment. Does that include athletics? Because we all know that athletics sometimes, when I call it punishment, but it's like, would that fall under that?
Yeah, it
We
would.
have to talk to the coaches.
Yeah, it would.
No,
I mean,
I'm
we
just trying to say, if someone came back and said, well, you got a wellness program, you can't make my son do laps, or my daughter. I'm just trying to.
And that would be a conversation we'd have with the coach. Are you having the whole team do the laps? Is it for physical training?
Right.
Or are you punishing that child because they came late and they have to do, 10 laps? So that would be a conversation that we would have. But in terms of meeting the regulations, is that you can't say, okay, everybody out to recess and you're running laps for 30 minutes.
Right.
Um,
But this
Or you've
wouldn't.
got your homework and you can't go to gym today.
Give them
Correct.
5 push-ups for getting your.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand, but the way this is, this would include sports teams.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
it's a
Okay,
policy for the district.
right.
okay,
Great job.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
A motion on that? So now, we would be looking for a motion to approve the revisions to the Abington Public Schools wellness policy as presented or amended. Aye, second?
Second.
Kathy, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, we'll move on to Teresa Sullivan, Abington High School principal.
Just, do you want to do the
Oh.
summer reading and then move on to?
Well, who, oh, the field
do
trip?
summer-
Yeah.
Do the summer reading and then move on to all the high school items? And then
Sure.
council plans.
Oh, okay, sure. We're gonna actually, all right, sorry, we're gonna move on to, what was this, Gonzalez, I'm sorry, grades 7 to 12, English Language Arts Department Head for our summer reading program.
Good evening, everyone. Summer slide is a problem examined by many academics and professional organizations. It's the loss of reading skill during the summer that accounts for roughly 80% of the reading achievement gap between the more or less economically advantaged children. Just imagine that if a student slides 2.5 months every year from the time they become independent readers, by the time they get to high school, that gap is 4 years between the richest readers and the poorest readers. To resolve this gap for Abington students, I've participated in a discussion to develop an appropriate summer reading program for Abington Public Schools with Superintendent Peter Schaefer and our head librarian, our director of the Abington Public Library, Deborah Grimmett. I've based most of my research and conclusions based on this synthesis of reading research called Summer Reading, Closing the Rich-Poor Reading Achievement Gap by Richard Allington and Anne McGill-Franzen. This was published by the International Reading Association through Teachers College Press, which comes to us from Columbia University. It's really the gold standard of recent reading research. It came out in 2013, so it's quite current. And I do have some web pages and white papers that have been composed by the International Reading Association, the National Council of Teachers of English, both in 2013, along with the New York State Public Library System and their educationist departments and metametrics. Summer reading programs often have multiple goals. To stop the summer slide is probably the first. To increase students' reading fluency and to promote pleasurable reading. The charge of recent research is to be innovative in programming in order to close this gap, as opposed to the traditional programs which often alienate students from the act of reading itself. In fact, they usually turn off the very students they mean most to help. Traditional summer reading programs, and I am a product of traditional summer reading programs, very old school, there are often 1 to 3 books required, depending on a student's academic level. Students used to buy books or take them out of the library. However, Massachusetts Department of Education now requires all students to provide all towns to provide all books in every mandatory summer reading program. One of my colleagues in Marshfield, the case went all the way to Malden, and because equity in access to text is necessary for all students in all forms that their individualized education plans require, it really makes mandatory summer reading in so many ways cost prohibitive. Many students do not have books in their homes. Often, students can't get to the library because the adults in their home work during library hours, or the family does not have access to public education. And sometimes the family does not value independent literacy activities itself. So mandating reading for all students would require all schools to issue all materials to be fair. And that would be a wonderful goal. In fact, vendors like Scholastic Book Company have come up with 5-book packages, much like the book bag programs that I know have gone on at the ECC and the Beaver Brook for years. But they are marketing it now as a summer reading program that perhaps in the future we could look towards supporting through a grant or through PTOs, and we could recycle those books. Often those books are available at a tremendous discount through a book fair. So it would be a tremendous community project for organizations to get together and adopt. Sometimes the assessments for summer reading are book reports or projects completed at home. Sometimes the assessments take place in the first few days of school, at school, and range from multiple choice to open response writing. My AP students get hit with 2 45-minute essays on the second and third day of school, and that's a different kind of student with a different kind of program, but that's how much we hold students to those high standards.
Jamie was smiling when you said that.
Jamie, you survived those summer reading programs quite nicely. Thank you, and I'm glad you were smiling and not crying. Very few assessments of this accomplishment of summer reading are reliable and valid measures of independent reading that takes place over a 3-month period. For instance, what happens if you read the book in June and your test is in September? What happens if it's a required project and somebody else does it or you clip and paste it from the internet? Now there's an entire swath of time at the beginning of the school year taken with validating every at-home document. What happens if your test is the first day or 2 when you come back and all you've done is gone to Amazon and read the summary and the reader's comments? It's very difficult to monitor students' assessments. And then what of students who require accommodations or modifications? How do we guarantee access to them? This is not to say that summer reading shouldn't happen, but many schools, particularly middle and high schools, use the grades on summer reading for anywhere from 10 to 30% of the first marking period. Then those students who are reading poor, who we aim to help, start at an even greater disadvantage if we hadn't had the summer reading program at all, and are not really encouraged, but discouraged and alienated by the reading activity. Research indicates that simply increasing students' access to books does encourage them to read. Additionally, the programs need to be voluntary. They need to permit students to choose what they would like to read, especially to increase the interest or pleasure aspects of reading. There need to be motivational activities to inspire students to continue reading and to promote relationships with other readers, their peers and adults who are important to them in their lives, in their homes, and in their communities. Some schools who have successful programs send the books home with students free of charge. Some schools open their libraries to students during the summer, and others bring books in the classic bookmobile directly to students. We do have libraries in each school in the Abington public school system, and it's a shame that they sit there all summer long. But it would take staffing, whether it was by volunteers or paid professionals, to maybe even open those libraries 1 or 2 or 3 days, maybe once a month, and that would be something we could look to in the future. Times have changed, of course, and now books are available electronically on a wide array of devices, and here's show and tell. And I have to have everything in a case, because once you move to an electronic device, you drop it and it's gone. It's not letting a beach read get sandy in your canvas bag. I read on my phone. I read one paragraph, one sentence at a time anyway. It doesn't really bother me as much that my screen is small. I didn't get the first generation Kindle, and this isn't the most recent, but I read on my Kindle too. And I like the keyboard because I take notes. My internet service here isn't that great. And now the next generation, is, of course, is to read on a tablet, much like the tablets Nicole was talking about having at the center school. What's really interesting about moving a student to an electronic device is they don't have to go to the library if they can't. And they don't even have to have a portable device. Some students can download electronic books directly to their desktop. And many libraries, including Abington Public Library, has had workshops for parents, for students to come in and learn how to download free of charge electronic books so that we can promote access, particularly for people who either can't be seen carrying a book or can't get to the library. The last SSR, and Jamie was in that class, this was the bonus for the week after the advanced placement exams. They got the gift of SSR, and they read. And some people read on their phones, some people brought in Nooks and Kindles, and some people old-fashioned paper. It was nice to see. But what was nicer to see is that they were all reading, and it didn't take much encouraging to get people to read. They all wrote book reviews on those, and we'll have a display soon. So, students can check out books to their computers and devices. Students also don't have to read books to engage in summer reading. They can read magazines. They can read newspapers, they can read online, and there are many, many ways to access reading material, including going to the library, which is still a great place to go. So, fluency is what is more important than anything, that students have regular practice reading. It doesn't really matter where the print is. It's great when it's voluntary. How can you enjoy something that you've been forced to read? Maybe there are some things that gradually over time you saw that had value, but to get students so encouraged to read that they remain fluent, it's better to go with something that has more interest and involvement and engagement. And it doesn't all have to be novels either. My husband is fond of saying that I went to school and majored in Let's Pretend, and I teach make-believe because I spend so much time with fiction. And so many people enjoy reading a true inspirational story, a biography, history, science. And the Common Core really does make informational text privileged. And it would be great if summer reading was not just the province of the English department, but all departments, to show that there is so much in the world to read. As a matter of fact, if you look at the New York Times review of books, 3/4 of the books reviewed every week are not fiction. They're nonfiction. And most of what they will read when they're college and career ready will be nonfiction also. And I just don't mean trade manuals, but the very stuff that most academic content is based on is nonfiction. So we'd like to see directions turning that way. So in a decision designed to strengthen the relationship between the schools and community in Abington, we'd like to feature the Abington Public Library in our summer reading plans. and to make real contact and build a relationship with the elementary and secondary students. So Abington Public Library offers a summer program, it has for years, for all students and teenagers. And this year, with the state of Massachusetts' involvement in the Collaborative Summer Reading Program, the acronym is CLASP, we have access to promotional materials around a single theme, expressed differently for each age group. Dig into Reading is the theme for elementary students and early literacy students, while Beneath the Surface is the teen theme. Now, these include science, getting beneath the earth in geology, but they also include mysteries, psychology. The themes are broad enough to engage readers in both fiction and nonfiction at every age. And if you take a look at the library's plans, there are programs, they start 0 to 3. Everybody's a reader, and they go all the way up to the teen group. What I didn't know is the Abington Public Library has a teen advisory board. Did you know about that? There are 26 teenagers in Abington who steer the teen reading program. And without giving you their names, we have 3 students from Abington High School, 5 from the Frollo, 1 from the Woodsdale. We have a student from South Shore Votech. We have 5 students from St. Bridget's. We have 5 students from Cardinal Spellman. We have a couple of students from Ursuline, 1 from Notre Dame, 2 from BC High, and 1 from Holy Family. So really, this is a way to forge relationships among all students who attend all schools in Abington and to continue to build this age group with their peers as a community rather than separating them out by school. Abington Public Schools wants to publicize and support the array of events and programs offered by our public library. I plan to attend the program kickoff on Monday, June 24th at 2 o'clock, and I invite all of you to do the same. Traditionally, the schools send home the calendar of events for grades pre-K through 6. These students have had field trips to the library itself, and there's a lot done to really energize students. Sending paper home with middle school students usually means there's a lot of litter. So we would like to encourage through the English classes and the libraries within the schools having pamphlets and handouts available. I would also like to encourage that these lists about the public library programs go home via Abington Public Schools Constant Contact. I think that would be a tremendous resource to the library in getting the word out about the summer programs to people who aren't already coming to the library but have signed up to be involved and interested in their students' schools. The Abington Public Library already promotes the suggested reading lists based on the Common Core that are found on all the public schools' websites, incorporating the Common Core standards. So I think it's our turn to publicize the work that's being done by our library to reach out to all our kids. Although special events to kick off summer reading at each school would be ideal, they do take time to plan. So we are in our summer reading program and partnership really in our infancy stage. So Mr. Schaefer, Ms. Grimmett, and I discussed the opportunity we do have to take advantage of a little long-range planning with school administrators to honor the reading that's done during the summer through a variety of grade-level appropriate activities involving teachers, staff, parents, and community leaders as facilitators when the students return to school. So how do I envision this? Celebrating summer reading with a grand conversation and book talks on a beach party theme as we say goodbye to summer is the way I see it. Students could bring a beach towel and something they read the past summer. They could pair up with a reading buddy or share their reading in small groups. At each grade level, students would fill out an appropriate page after the conversation with what I plan to read next. So perhaps they've seen an adult, a friend, a neighbor, and they're excited about reading something. These pages could be part of a display in a prominent area, become a list of suggested reading. They could even have students make their own reading wish lists as bookmarks that they could take with them to their school libraries and the public library. Looking forward with reading plans that are inclusive and inviting might actually catch the interest of a reluctant reader who might be inspired to choose to read in the future, rather than to endure punishment with a poor grade that would distance them with reading. So that's the beginning and the infancy of our plan. To always be inclusive, to always be encouraging, to always be inviting, rather than to shut down the reader, is to open new opportunities for them. We would also like to encourage reading for pleasure by supporting the Abington Public Library's Abington Reads initiative at the secondary level during the next school year. I was so pleased to be invited to participate in this year's Abington Reads, its first year, with the title The Dark Tide. I had already read this thrilling history with the History Book Club that was sponsored through an America Reads grant through Weymouth. I had lived in Massachusetts since I was 10 years old, and I didn't know a huge vat of molasses flooded in its explosion the entire North End and killed 26 people. And as I hear on warm summer evenings, you can smell molasses in the air. I didn't know of its connection to the first class action suit that was taken on behalf of the poor and the immigrant, long before civil action. And it was won on their behalf by people who believed that they had been done wrong. And I was thrilled to meet Stephen Polio in the flesh. He came to Abington High School. He talked to our students. I've never seen a more engaging person talk about his experience as a writer, to answer all kinds of questions about how books were written. He was one of the most engaging authors I've heard speak. For this coming year, we imagine promotional material with town and school leaders based on the American Library Association's Read posters. Perhaps you've seen them, read in big letters, and someone important photographed with a book. I imagine all of us to sit for one of those photographs with our Abington Reads books. Ms. Grimmick, can I say it? It's a secret. I can't tell you, but we'd like to encourage, let's say it's appropriate for middle school and high school students on up. And the idea is to build a bridge between our student readers and our adult readers. For this coming year, we imagine this promotional material also featuring people who are willing to talk about their reading on cable, because in Taunton, that's where we get our news. Maybe from the Taunton Daily Gazette, and maybe you get it from the Mariner, but everybody watches cable. And I think it's a great way to get the word out. Perhaps all of us could volunteer to participate and encourage everyone to read. And hopefully the relationship that we build with the Abington Public Library will make our reading as a community program something so much more than summer reading, and be reading all year long. So I'd be happy to take any questions that you have about summer reading, and I can also welcome Ms. Grimmett to take these questions as well. If she'd like to come to the podium, she could too.
I'd like to thank you for doing, I think, your words, the infancy. This is, in my conversations with Peter, something that's been long overdue in Abington, any type of, besides a suggested reading program, because as we suggested just goes in one and out the other for a lot of, things when people have things to do. So I want to thank you for putting all this work together, and I have read a lot of the literature you'd already passed on, and it's very informative. And I'm glad I hope to see great strides from this program moving forward into something that is incorporated into all of our schools every summer, and it continues throughout the year. Because it is something, I think, that, and I said to Peter, we've had this conversation, some school systems are doing it right, we're certainly not, and I said, I don't feel like we're doing it at all. So we definitely need to, and I'm glad to see we're making strides in that.
The important thing, and I will stand on record, is saying that it is so very important that the program be voluntary and that students have options. Many school districts, and I've spoken to my colleagues in the South Shore, require reading that never occurs, or it happens the night before, or the assessments don't mean very much. And I would hesitate to just develop a program that's going to make our reading poor students more poor. So other towns are doing a range of reading programs, but I want to make sure that it actually encourages and promotes reading than just to be another way to record a reading deficit.
And I think we have to be very thoughtful because of a lot of this, and I've gone through the literature in the summer reading program that, I brought my children to when they were younger. But you'll have those repeat customers, and people that will go to the library, and those are the students that have the books at home and that have that. So we need to, I think, really tune into the other community part, that we need to make sure that we're somehow, as you said, trying to engage those that may not be reading now.
I think the perks of being a wallflower, which is maybe this generation's Catcher in the Rye, having the book movie night at the library is an exciting way to bring people in who might be reluctant readers, but with a 26-member advisory teen board, we should be able to find out what will motivate those students and bring them together.
And I think the electronic device is key, because students, as they get older, they don't go, to them, the library's a thing of the past, unfortunate to that, and as they age up, then I think they see the value of it. But right now, it's, as you said, the phone, the iPad,
And that it's
the note.
free. I think that's tremendous.
And they can get anything in a second, so it's that instant gratification for them.
I think, to your point, for the public library, the school department has a much broader reach than we do to reach the students who are maybe in a reading poor environment. And it's my hope that we will see an increase in participation this summer, simply because if something is promoted by the Abington Public Schools, parents are going to value it. We can send home flyers, but if families are not regular library users, they may not come. Sometimes they don't come because there's a language barrier. Sometimes they don't come because 30 years ago, mom or dad had a bad experience at a library. I mean, there's any number of reasons why people don't visit public libraries. And one of the things we need to think about for the 21st century public library is that getting out, partnering with other groups in the community, and trying to get people to come in. And once that happens, I'm hoping we'll see an increase in numbers. We're planning for our part to track participation by school and grade entering. That's how we record things. And we'll share that information at the end of the summer. So, and along with some correlations to our success last summer. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we would like to plan the events in the fall, the back to school, say goodbye to summer reading events, so that Deb and Lauren can attend to witness what it is that students read, to make a connection, whatever they want to read next, let them know where it's available and how they access the library. In the future, we have actual plans for the equipment to be able to sign students up for library cards at their school. So, I don't have a library card. Well, we're going to take one more step out of that and bring the library card to them. I think the book fairs, like the one that the Frollo is having this month, is another great way to bring engaging books to students and to promote book ownership as well.
The Public Library School Connect, I'm sorry, I have allergies and I'm croaking. The Public Library School Connection is already very strong. I was thrilled when I came tonight to hear the reference to the kindergarten class's visit to the public library, where Lauren did do a version of The Little Red Hen.
I think that was a huge deal because those kids went, and some of them hadn't been there before, and every day somebody comes in, I got my library card, so I think that was great to get them now.
And I think, too, the proximity of the high school to the library and this new direction and this opportunity to build relationships. We can have field trips to the library also. The Nero Room is a wonderful young adult collection, and it's such a wonderful place to be, that once students are in and are welcomed and they know about the Teen Advisory Council, I think we can encourage and promote more school library activities.
I'm looking forward to see where this goes, and all of our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now we're going to hear from Terry Sullivan, Abington High School principal.
Thank you. I'm going to present the school improvement plan first,
Okay.
and then I'll call Assistant Principal Sullivan up to do the student handbook. The two regulated jobs of the school council, and I'd like to thank my council members. I believe you have a copy. Peter Serino and Frank Alves, both teachers. Julie Colley, parent. Carrie Ann McGrath, Toten, parent. Carol McKeon, parent. Ellen Harris, community rep for as long as I can remember. Students Greg Corbett and Alex Haggerty, and Ellen Killian served as a school committee liaison, and of course, Assistant Principal Sullivan, both of those non-voting members. But it's been wonderful to have student reps on for 2-year stints. There was a time when you only have to have one student rep, but we haven't shut it down. We've kept as many who would like to, and they've both been kind enough to stay on, participate, and attend almost every meeting, except when they conflict with some of their other numerous activities. Pages really 4, 5, and 6, well, 4 and 5, we squeezed it on there, are the achievements that you'll see really in a slideshow format. We try to get that on the website. It's really an update of annually Those achievements, we pretty much keep them consistent every year, just how many students are, for example, John Abigail Adams Scholar winners, where are our MCAS scores, how many kids are taking AP exams, and other kinds of significant scholarships and achievements that students have been earning. In addition to, obviously, our senior awards night this Thursday, where the community, just a plug, gives $70,000 to our seniors, which is pretty impressive. The most important job of the school council really is developing the school improvement goals and therefore professional development planning. We have 3 goals. We have traditionally had anywhere between 3 and 5. What has seemed to happen is most of our curriculum instruction and assessment goals have joined into this one goal about 21st century skills. So we've been able to combine those together. So our first goal, to use the Teaching and Learning Strategic Action Plan and our own mission statement with our academic expectations to guide our curriculum development and our professional development plans moving forward. The first one is different and significant. I think that I noticed other schools presented that also, but to align our curriculum instruction to the Common Core state standards, that's where we're at a beginning place. And that will take a significant amount of curriculum, professional development through summer workshops as well to accomplish that. Continue to identify and embed practices, instruction, and assessment that support student acquisition of 21st century skills. Obviously identifying what 21st century skills are and how are we reaching them. There was argument a little bit at the table that incorporating the technology literacy standards, in fact, are also 21st century skills, but we really thought it was important to sort of mitigate that out a little bit and include the literacy standards separately, because there's a lot to it. And there was an era many years ago where there was really a technology instructional department, and now the expectation is technology will be owned by all departments and all teachers. So we wanted to make sure that we included that here. Second goal, the activities did change significantly here, but if we're going to use student performance data to make informed decisions. This is the first time I've actually attached data, and I have an additional chart for you that I can get you. There was a blip in the Excel program, but my mistake actually, and there's a space mistake, so I can give you that updated version. We've always identified students struggling to make effective progress. We may call that, RTI, response to intervention, but how are we answering to students who are struggling? Different years, there are different attempts. It may be through a special ed department, certain kinds of activities, different ways we offer academic support. Sometimes we've had grades 9 through 12 in one academic support. We've done our delivery model a little bit differently last year. We separated out 9 and 10 and 11 and 12. We've had transition programs for particular students who are coming back. We had a particular year when our hospital placement was very high, and we found that our struggling students were the students who were out of school, often, whether for 3 weeks or a week, and tried to come back in and throw them back into the classroom. We had a program for a while that transitioned them back in. And that's why we added this alternative programming. The school committee actually a couple of months ago approved a new online credit recovery program. That's a means to alternative programming, another way to support a struggling student who may be hospitalized and in placement for a longer period of time, for example, and unable to come to school, or a diagnosis that may prevent them from coming to school on a regular basis. So those alternative programmings, we're looking at, and this, school council talked about freshman transition programs. Is there a way to transition? Target already, we can identify the 8th graders who may struggle to transition to the high school and provide programming for them. Senior projects, capstone projects, exhibitions, service work, all discussions around alternative programming for providing credit and success for high school diploma. Continue to identify common assessments and develop additional common assessments. That's going to be driven anyway, I think, by our Common Core state standards. Support a data team. We, for the first time, had a data team in place that has been trained, and even prior to training, we've been collecting data, and we've taken most of that data from state reports. We haven't actually come up with any causal relationships with that data yet. We do need time to look at it and see if we can, in fact, do that. So the first draft actually was attached, I believe, in Appendix D. Preparing for the park assessment, that's new. That is something we will need professional development on. And actually, Dr. Gonzalez serves as our park liaison with the state, so she's been very helpful and will continue to be. How are we going to plan that implementation? Piloting a scheduling model that includes teacher common planning time. Over the last several years, I've been up here talking about NEASC and our accreditation and where we are in terms of our recommendations. That is probably the biggest one that's still our hang-up, and that is the lack of common planning time for teachers in our scheduled day. So we had a separate committee. Actually, Assistant Principal Jessica Sullivan ran that committee this year. Numerous meetings, lots of teachers, lots of involvement, brought it back to the school council on a regular basis. Where are we? How can we do this? So that committee will meet again this week. They actually present to the faculty on where are they. But that's something that we will be charged with completing next year also. How can we get our scheduling model in sync with the NEASC requirements, and hopefully we can align it with our advisory program. And to also support the implementation of a new educator evaluation system. Clearly, at some point, student achievement data will be tied to the teacher evaluation system. So we assume that that information will be important in using student performance data to make informed decisions, including staffing decisions as well. And maybe we can add recess after lunch, too. We're going to support programs and policies that maintain an environment that is safe, substance-free, tolerant, respectful, and conducive to education. This goal did not change and probably shouldn't. But certainly the activities around how we do that continuously changes. This year, new to us, is supporting the school building committee's efforts to secure a state-of-the-art facility for Abington students, whether it be a high school or any other school. Certainly we believe that that is in the best interest of all Abington students, and we want to make sure that we are attending those meetings, have professional development around, how can we help? Providing students opportunities to participate in programs that encourage safe, substance-free, and respectful behavior. That changes. Our student programs, their activities, can tie that into actually the number 7 too, whether it be contests, essays, programs, clubs, athletics. We just want to make sure that we are listening to our students. We've changed things, not necessarily always in the contract or always in the bud. If a student comes forward, like Olivia, and wants a dance team, how can we make that happen for students? If we can get something in place, we certainly do try. The improv club came about because students were interested, and we had a faculty member who was able to do that. The Gay Straight Alliance ran a pep rally today. They for the first time, it was a great pep rally, but they called it Acceptance Day to honor all clubs and activities, not just a fall sports program, because traditionally we do that around Thanksgiving. So this was much more inclusive and sort of wrapped up the lip dub that was also new and exciting today. That's sort of the plan in a nutshell. And I really do want to thank the school council. They are a great group of people who work very, very hard and are very, very thoughtful to come up with their plans. Any questions on our plan for professional development?
Do we have any more additional information on when the park assessment is actually going to try to be implemented in Massachusetts?
They're actually, sorry.
The latest word was going to be, is that it's being pushed back, but they haven't done that officially yet.
They actually have trials going on that will start this coming fall in certain school systems. We're not one of them, but that will be taking place, so they'll be soliciting input, especially because they have to make sure there's capacity. There's a lot of technology that's needed, so there's the capacity piece, and then looking at the grade level expectations. So Liz, Dr. Gonzalez, we're fortunate, has done a lot of that training. So right now, we're trying to, because the state is taking a little bit more time on that front, we're able to roll out our educator evaluation tool, because we weren't raced to the top, so we had more time to do that. So that'll be something that we'll be able to roll out and then move into the park piece.
And will Dr. Gonzalez report to you the results of the towns that will actually be going ahead with the park assessment over the next year or so?
She'll be coming here at some point and sort of laying out what she sees going on with the park. We've been waiting because we know the state keeps waiting, actually talking about implementing it with a paper and pencil, perhaps, and slowing down the need for technology. But again, none of that's official, and it's just, we want to wait until we get something, the latest announcement, before we provide that information, because we don't know what we're saying.
there any South Shore South Shore towns that are gonna be involved in this pilot program that they're kicking off?
Not right now, because I go to the regional meetings, and so we don't have one right now, but I think there's a question on Quincy and Braintree, that would be the closest.
We tried to jump on.
Right. And usually with A, we do jump on, not by always choice, because A is for Abington. So, but we'll be able to give you, information just in terms of what's going on, what's happening. Aaron Heyer actually has been involved in getting ready, for now quite a while. Maybe is it a year or 2 years, just in terms of the capacity, because we have to make sure that that's in place as well. So there has been more behind the scenes work going on versus the outward MCAS is gone and Park is in. But we'll get there, and then we'll be also, Dr. Gonzalez will be doing some trainings, and then we'll be able to update you, where I usually cover the newest mandate, the newest initiative, and then the status on each.
I was at a meeting last week, and they talked about the rollout of Park, and next year's doing the trial, and that they heard from communities that weren't selected, that they want to give people the experience of the testing. So, and this was from Jeff Nelhouse in Washington, that they're trying to come up with a way that every community will be able to experience Park. Some will count as like trials for test questions, and the others will be more providing the experience. But there's still so many questions around how it's even going to roll out, how the testing is going to occur, what the capacity is in not just Massachusetts, but all the states that are engaged.
Which is similar, to be honest with you, the way they rolled out MCAS.
Right.
That took a while to develop. They did pilots in different districts. They learned from those pilots, and then they moved the whole state forward.
Any questions for me on the school improvement plan?
I have another one. I have one. The thought about kind of, targeting our 8th graders that are moving up that we think may have trouble transitioning, I think that's a great idea. I mean, have we gone beside, is there any formal plan to maybe implement that now, because it's...
We're going to hope to pilot something in September.
Okay.
I've asked for a summer curriculum workshop for 4 people. I think I have an engaged group of people who are interested in tying an advisory program to a freshman transition program. Doesn't just have to be struggling if we want to have every freshman in there, but I think college and career readiness standards are also going to drive some of this in engaging our guidance department, particularly in what does a transcript mean? Why is that different than coming from a junior high model or a middle school model? The mass model for actually guidance counselor curriculum is to be more in classrooms. It's very difficult for them to be in classrooms in a high school credit situation where, the English teachers will tell you, they take my kids all the time. Can we incorporate this through an advisory program that doesn't really take instructional time away? And we certainly are bound by our 990 instructional hours, but the advisory program would count with a curriculum in place. We have some model curriculums, and hopefully a summer workshop would tie those 2 things together. And it would also, hopefully if we can work it correctly, give our faculty common planning time while others are teaching the freshman transition or advisory.
I mean, it's even something I think, for all freshmen, it's a big change.
It is.
And I think it's, I've had conversations, this is the real world. Where do you see, this is what's happening now, it's what's gonna get you to where you wanna be in 4 years. And I think that's a hard concept for 14-year-olds to grasp. That's some help for them. That'd be great.
And that it doesn't go away. The
No.
transcript builds and.
Right. Does anyone have any other questions for Terry before we? No. So we're looking for a motion to accept the 2013-14 Abington High School Improvement Plan as presented.
Make that motion.
Mike, second.
Second.
Paul, all in favor?
Aye.
Assistant Principal Sullivan will walk you through the handbook revisions.
Great.
Thank you, Erin. Good evening. While this is being warmed up for a short PowerPoint presentation, I would like to take this opportunity just to review the proposed changes for the for a student handbook, up to looking at the attendance data. The way that your packet is organized is the very first subcategory listed bolded is the direct wording that we currently have in the handbook. Underneath that, italicized is the recommendation. From there, what is bolded is what we are asking for. And I, too, would like to thank members of the school council. Their thoughtfulness really drove some really good discussions this year, so I thank them. The first recommended changes would be for awards, to remove the last sentence. See the guidance services section for questions or concerns, or contact the guidance office about the criteria for specific awards. The rationale is guidance counselors, the guidance department does not do these awards. It is teachers and department heads. They come up with the criteria based on the year-end underclass awards specifically. And that was on page 23. On page 37, the driving and parking regulations, we would like to add to that. There will be a $25 parking fee for senior, quote, paint your spot parking privileges. The rationale for this, it would help defray the maintenance costs for blacktopping or covering over the artwork that would be done from the previous year's students parking in their designated parking spots. We tried it this year as a pilot. The feedback that we received from the students was, it was over a short period of time. This was based on senior privileges, seniors coming up, making presentations to the school council, what they would like as a senior privilege. So we started it this year. We had a lot of snow, so we really could not even begin to take a look at this after it all dried up and the parking lot was free of debris, maybe like the beginning of April, end of March. But we feel very confident that when we start this in August for next year's senior class, they will take advantage of that.
Can I ask a question as we go through each of these, or do we just want to go through them?
Jessica, can you ask a question now, or do you want questions at the end? Do you have
Sure, you can ask a question.
Well, it's just on this driving the parking regulation. When I read it, is it really a driving regulation, or is it just a parking regulation?
It's a senior privilege.
No, I'm talking about this, I understand it's a privilege, but this section of the handbook, is it really about driving, or is it really just about parking?
It is a parking privilege that we offer to everybody of driving age.
Right, but the way it starts, it is considered a privilege for a student to drive his or her, but is it, the school doesn't really give the privilege to drive. That's initiated by the Commonwealth and the parents letting the student drive the car.
The privilege to park in our parking lot.
Right, and that's all, I'm just trying to make the distinction between a privilege of driving, which the school really can't do. It's the parking that the school can do.
The recommendation from the school council to bring forward to the school committee was specifically to add the wordage of paint your spot parking privilege. I do understand where you're going with this. If the school committee would like me to change drive to park, I'd be more than happy to.
Is there additional parts of this underneath driving and parking regulations in the student handbook? And we're just like capturing one certain paragraph that we're just not seeing everything on
That is it. That is it. That top part is
that's it.
direct wording from the student handbook.
Yeah.
because this would have been the only change.
Yes.
Thing that,
Right.
right.
Yes.
The only other reference to driving is in the code of conduct if there's a violation. But other than that, this is it as far as driving.
So,
Well, the privilege under a code of conduct, then it would be considered a privilege because it would be revoked, correct? If a violation of the code of conduct?
absolutely, but I think all you're saying is, this describes parking regulations, so
Yeah.
take the word driving out of it. And then
Yeah.
you think that the school council wouldn't care?
I don't think
Take
it,
the
I
word
don't think it
privilege.
would at all. I'd be more than happy to change drive to park. But But to further the discussion, any type of word smithing, if I happen to be in error or school council was in error, please be rest assured, all of this is, I actually represent this in front of select members of the English department, so they could go through specific wordsmithing, just so we don't get tied up on the language per se. However, what you are saying, Mr. Haggerty, is you would like to have it is considered a privilege for a student to park his or her car.
Yeah, because I really look at it as more of just a parking regulation than a driving.
Okay.
Because other schools may have, like, a driving regulation as far as how long you can idle your car and that sort of stuff. I mean, we could handle it, expand the handbook to address specific driving issues.
Sure. We would like to put in there, keep in there the adding of specific senior privilege of painting the spot and having a $25 parking fee specific to painting the spot. Is there any other questions for that wording, specific to that paragraph? Thank you, Mr. Haggerty. Page 60, the current wording for varsity jackets. The recommendation is to remove numbers 1, 2, and 3, to reword varsity jackets awarded to student athletes who have met the yearly requirements, contingent upon available funding. The rationale is keep the booster language out of the handbook. And that was at the direction of our attorney, and be consistent with all other fundraising activities that we have going on within our athletic department and co-curricular activities.
Can I just ask one?
Sure.
Do we define what the requirements are? Because it sort of looks like here we have requirements, or,
That's what we would be removing. We would be
Okay.
removing number 1, 2, and 3, and rewording just that one sentence. So there would be booster fundraising activities, but yet keeping that language out of the student handbook to be consistent with the other co-curricular and clubs that we have going on.
so is there
So
elsewhere in the, excuse me, in the handbook where it defines like how you would get a varsity jacket if the,
We're hoping that we're gonna revise the student athlete handbook, the student athlete parent handbook also.
okay,
And, with new athletic directors on board, and also new athletic director serving on the school council, the discussion was about letting the new athletic director word that into the student athlete handbook.
okay.
And by this language, the student athlete has to meet the yearly requirements, so whatever they're spelled out, that group covers.
Right, so we're saying you have to meet the yearly requirements.
It will be spelled out in the student athlete parent handbook.
And our lawyers are guiding us in that way to remove this.
Yes, to remove that language from the student handbook.
Okay.
Would this language be sort of put into the athletic handbook?
Yep.
Yep.
So it will still be there for the students to receive, just not in this handbook.
So what will be there is how you get it, how you awarded a
Right.
varsity jacket.
Whatever way that may be.
Sports,
Right. Okay.
Okay, any other questions for page 60? Okay, page 85, the current wording. Under the code of conduct violation, it would be a category A or A-6, failure to sign into school immediately upon arrival. We would like to add after that period, or actually it will be upon arrival, comma, or sign out of the building upon dismissal. We were having children leave the building without signing out, and we needed to be specific with that code. Okay, up to this point, it provides clarity with the signing in and signing out.
So early, you were referring to early dismissal, I would assume?
I'll use experiential learning as an example. They do leave campus at certain times during the week to go to their work or their job site. They need to sign out of the building for safety and security purposes, so we know who's on campus and who's not on campus.
So anything other than
And they would leave.
157?
Yes. Yep.
Can I just, and please bear with me, I'm not trying to, when it says failure to sign into school, So we sign into the school, but then we're signing out of the building. I'm just trying to understand what's the distinction between,
Sure. The distinction is, a student could be a late arrival, meaning they did not arrive to school prior to 7:25. Attendance has already been taken. Oops, they're in their first period class.
I think what you're saying is.
So that they have not
what
signed in.
School or building would be, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Use the same term?
yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Because you're signing into a school, but then you're checking out of, or signing out of a building.
Sure. Do you think it would be better worded if we put "or sign out of the school" upon dismissal?
I think they both should be building.
I think
Building? Both should be
And
building?
both be building, okay. I just wanted to be consistent.
So that A6, if you look up above the recommendation, it would say failure to sign
Into the building.
into
immediately.
building. Okay. Thank you for that suggestion. Any other questions on page 85?
I guess just to take it one step further, are we using school elsewhere, and now we're using building here, so are we gonna be inconsistent across the handbook now? Take it one step further.
That's something we can have an eye toward maybe next year is the school
Yeah, no,
council.
I understand. I just
I don't know if you wanna,
Great point, absolutely.
Right, to have it, whatever word we choose.
we can, right.
Page 86 and 87, this is with regards to smoking. The recommendation is to add electronics, to add electronic cigarettes. And this provides more clarity with nicotine products.
And have we seen this at the high school?
Yes, we have.
Good idea to add it then. to-
Good, yes. Trying to cover all of our bases. Any questions on the recommendation?
We use cigarettes in there, and I'm not trying to be a funny guy here, but what if someone had a cigar? Does this really cover it?
Just tobacco products.
Tobacco products? That would
In
be
any form.
cigars?
Other tobacco products as well as use of tobacco in any form.
So other tobacco products, cigars could be under that tobacco product?
Student smoking includes possession of cigarettes and/or paraphernalia. Oh, so we're covering it under other tobacco products.
As well as use of tobacco in any form.
Okay.
So that's chewing tobacco, cigars, I don't know,
Oh,
snuff they used to use.
all right. So that's where we catch all everything else?
Yes.
Okay. And just one question on, what do we mean by within Abington on that last sentence?
It should say within Abington High School, or Abington High School will be subject to the following, and then list the criteria. I like that suggestion that I was made aware of. It should say within Abington High School.
No, I think he's talking about the last line. Are you talking about the last line?
The
Says
last
within
line.
Abington?
Yeah, the
within
last line.
Abington. Yeah, because I'm just
Any
thinking, if you're at senior reception prom football game in Rockland or Hull, wherever it is, does this cover us? Just take.
Period after functions.
Right.
School-sponsored functions.
Function will be subject to the following.
Because you don't want them going on field trips and saying, well, we're not in Abington,
Yeah.
so I can do it.
That's great. So if you look up to the third line from the bottom, starting with because, the recommendation would then be, because smoking compromises the health of the school community, students found smoking in school, on school grounds, and/or at school-sponsored functions will be subject to the following. How does that sound?
Yep.
Great. Any questions on that before we go into the attendance and tardy policy? Every year we take a look at data, all types of data. What I do on a pretty consistent basis is take a look at our attendance data and discipline referral data. So if you would allow me just to take about 5 or 10 minutes just to go over these 3 slides, this will help us drive our discussion on why we would like to have a discussion to further or have embedded attendance policy that ties credits into attendance. This first slide deals with, if you can read it, I can barely read it from here, but going back to 2010, what we notice is a trend from 2010 to last year, 2012. We noticed that Abington High School was slightly lower in our attendance rate versus the state. The state has been pretty consistent, anywhere between 94.6 and last year 94.9. That's consistent. Abington High School, we've seen a trend downward. Again, only going back to 2010, we were at 92.2. Last year, we were about 91.5. We'll be around that or slightly lower this year if I could project, based on the average number of days absent, okay, as compared to the state. Here? Here? Okay. With that being said and keeping that in mind, other data that I took a look at is I took a look at the average days absent. You can see at the bottom it starts with 0, goes all the way up to 25. For the sake of this presentation, that is percentages for this bar graph. And our average days absent. We noticed in 2010, we were about 13.5 days absent. Okay, that's a student, 13.5 days absent in a year. But we also noticed, as of last year, we jumped up to 14.5 days absent per year. Projecting out to the end of this year, if we keep going on the trend, we're about 17%. That's just raw data, okay? So again, we're seeing a trend that, this is a trend we don't want to go up in, we want to come down in. However, we also noticed that we saw an upward trend in our cut rate. Now, what is that? Cut rate, for my purpose for discipline, and the percentages here, though that bar graph represents the total discipline referrals in percentages. Let me give you an example. If you take a look at the purplish blue highest bar graph, okay? Out of our current discipline referrals to date, we've had 1,106 office referrals of various kind. Unfortunately, 22% of those office referrals are for students that have cut class. They have chosen not to come to class. They've chose to sit in the bathroom, in the cafeteria, hide, or leave the building. Now, 22%, that's a big spike, because if you go back to 2010, we had roughly 1,200 office referrals, and 11% of those office referrals represented students cutting a class. You can also see the dropout rate, the middle portion of the bar graphs. 2010, we were about 2.3. Last year, we were about 3.7. We also took a look at the truancy rates. In 2010, it represented about 1.2% of our office referrals. This year, we're currently at 2.7. Truancy is defined as students that have been reported as not being in school by a parent, or if we have later, it was later determined or found that those students were somewhere in the town of Abington but not in school. That's how we define truancy. We found that there was direct correlation between the cut rate and leaving building, of course. Our current number this year of the 1,106 office referrals leaving the building represents 8.9. So again, a trend that we didn't want to see. When the students are not in class, they're not engaged, they're not learning. So with this, we decided to take a look at our current attendance policy and tweak it to provide earlier interventions for the students rather than waiting to week 4 or week 8 or at the end of a semester or a year, when we really want to tackle those possible dropouts sooner than later. Because we also found a correlation between cutting class, leaving the building, and not coming to school and dropout. With that being said, this year there was a survey given to the state high schools inquiring about their attendance policies. I wanted to make sure that we were not reinventing any wheel. I wanted to see the similarities that were out there within the state. How many schools have identified tying in credits with attendance? Over 100 high schools were surveyed. 53 responses came back. 51 out of the 53 schools that have responded indicated that they have tied in credits with attendance. This slide is only a sampling of the schools that responded, tying in attendance with credits. And I have that attendance data here for you. Feel free if you want to take a look at that. Any question on the data so far before I can go into the recommendations?
Oh, no, go ahead.
If you can flip back a slide. Sure. Graph. So when we talk about this, and I've said this all the time, it's hard to compare apples to apples because this is an overall high school look, correct?
Yes, it is.
So which means that our seniors that were here last year have left, we have a new incoming class, and I think the makeup, correct?
Absolutely.
Right, so the
Yes.
makeup is always a little different, but having said that, that dropout rate, which increased from, I didn't get the first number you said from 2011, but went to 3.7?
Yes.
Is that, define dropout rate, if you could, I know what it means, but is that just someone who has not, on paper, graduated from Abington High for whatever reason?
And as we know, not have enrolled at Middleborough evening classes or any other place that we know of. These are the actual dropout rate.
Could a student actually be enrolled in a program and that other program hasn't put them on their list?
Absolutely.
So that, although that looks, to me, it's alarming. Even that slight increase is alarming. Some of that could actually be that a student did graduate, did go to the Weymouth High night program, or maybe is graduating from Rockland or another community.
Yep.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
I had known that, but I think it's important for people to realize that, although it's good data to have, there is some stuff behind the scenes that we have no control over.
Absolutely.
Once they leave us, we're hoping that other communities do let us know that they're there, if they have graduated.
Just the tying attendance with credits, that wouldn't impact anybody with an IEP or a 504, right? You couldn't work that?
Well, it would depend upon
the interventions used.
whatever's on the IEP.
Right.
I mean, if they have an anxiety issue to school, then an IEP is developed for their anxiety to not want to come to school.
Right.
But if it is a child who has a learning disability in reading, you still have to come to school.
Right,
But
but
we're engaging you in terms of reading support.
So they would be subject to it unless it's defined in the IEP or,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yep, that's a good question. That's a really good question. Because you don't want to disable a child more than they are disabled.
Hmm.
So you want to hold them accountable to, just
Right.
like any child, but we're giving you modifications or accommodations,
Right.
you know, for your disability.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
so that's a really good point.
And that's a great point, and that is also reflected in these numbers. So students that are on a 504 or an IEP with anything indicated on those aren't included on the attendance as unexcused absences. Okay? So there's that very large gray area. Okay, so just let me just review this. If I'm going too fast, let me know. What we would like to propose is tying in credits with attendance in a loss of credits based on a semester or a year basis, based on the number of unexcused absences as defined in the policy. And we're not changing what is considered an unexcused absence as stated in the student handbook. That is not changed. What we are offering is, for those that have 5 credit courses, students that have 12 or more unexcused absence will lose credit, but will receive a grade, and they will be graded as is. Those students that are enrolled in 2.5 credit course with 6 or more unexcused absence will lose that credit, but they keep the grade. What we will be introducing is building a relationship on an earlier basis, or intervening or embedding interventions at an earlier basis with the families, notifying them through telephone calls, followed up by mail, followed up by student contracts, followed up with a possibility with child receiving assistance. With the new child receiving assistance, a school can file upon the 8th unexcused, or actually the 8th absence in a term. We try to prevent that. We have to show due diligence in getting the students here on a timely basis. Okay? The uniqueness about this attendance policy is an option for the students to take advantage of a buyback. So they earn their way back. We're trying to stay away from punitive damage. What we found out is that when kids would leave school, students not coming to school, students that are truant, students that are late after 6, 7, 8, 15 tardies in a term, we found that we were placing them in an in-school suspension room. So not only were they still missing instruction by being out of school, but now they're missing more instruction because we put them in the in-school suspension room. That defeated the purpose. We need to get them in the classroom. What I like about this attendance policy is it places the onus on the students and their parents, but the responsibility rests with myself, to be honest with you, in assisting and tracking the students that have the option of buying back a day. It will be recorded as absence to the state. It's recorded in X2 as an absence. But rather than giving a detention, where they should be staying after school, they should be taking part in extracurricular, co-curricular activities, rather than staying with me for detention, which quite often they don't, because they rather have the in-school suspension, trying to turn it around to a positive experience. So I'll give you an example. In any term, a student can miss or have 3 absences in 4 weeks. I'm sorry, in 9 weeks. In a term, 3 days. For every day that they're out in that term, they have the option of buying back one of those days. Meaning they'll come to the main office, they'll grab a slip, they'll bring it around to all of their teachers, and have the teachers sign it. So the teacher then has identified with the student, ooh, that person was absent. This person has to have 5 good days or 5 days of being to school on time, not being absent, no office referrals, actively participating or continuing to participate in the class. And that person would buy back that day. So if they had 3 absences in that marking term, and they bought back a day, now they're down to 2. Okay? You can't buy back 2 days in a row, which is pretty cool, because I can probably get 2 weeks out of 2 absences, which would behoove the teachers teaching the students in the classroom, getting the kids in the classroom rather than sticking them into the in-school because they missed a day of school or they came in 5 minutes late twice. Okay? So the idea behind that is the buyback option. You would do that on a term-by-term basis. But the important part of that is that communication, that early intervention of contacting the parent, bringing the parent in to provide ownership on how important seat time is in the classroom, is what it comes down to. With that, I hope to see the trend go back down with some of those indicators. Tardies would work the same way, okay? Currently, right now, we have 6 tardies. You have to stay for detention even if you're 1 minute late. They should be staying after with their teachers, okay? What we would like to do there is, for a certain number of tardies to school in a term, it would equal an unexcused absence. For example, working with the system that we currently have, rather than 6 tardies in a term going to detention, it would be 6 tardies in a term. That would equal 1 unexcused absence for the term, and they can buy that back.
When they buy it back, it then does not impact the loss of, you're talking about credit versus grade.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's to their advantage.
It's to their advantage.
Yeah.
It's to the student's advantage of getting in there, the student's advantage of reaching that 110 credits in a 4-year period of time, if they happen to be in a 4-year cohort.
Right. Because that's a problem. They can
That
get
is a
the grade,
problem.
but if you don't show up, it impacts your credit, which means you might not graduate on time because you haven't fulfilled the requirements of the credit.
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite the incentive. Good idea.
So when they're absent,
original idea.
when they're absent on a term
Yes, we did
or
copy it.
when they're absent on a term or semester boundary, they won't have that option to buy back because it's towards the end of that term or the end of that semester, if they're absent at that point in time.
If
They
they've
wouldn't-
reached the limit, you mean?
If they've reached the limit, say at the end, the last day of that term or that last day of that semester, they won't have that option to buy back because now you've gone over that boundary of a term. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, but there's, yes, you are right. Okay, so if you go by the semester or by the year, you would take a look at the 2nd term and the 4th term, okay? It would be very wise of them to count up their absences and their unexcused absences and their tardies. You cannot buy back before the planned absence occurs either. So some students were asking me that, they're already planning their absences. I said, no, that's not how it works. Student input, very important. They said, boy, I wish we did it this year. It would have kept me in school.
I think that's what's important with this buyback, is you'll often hear from kids, well, I can't pass anyway, so why go?
And they give up.
And the buyback is, you know, you've got this other chance, which I think is really important.
Which, if you're teaching people responsible behaviors, you're making them earn it back. You're not just giving it to them. And so you're teaching them the skills they need to be work-ready, college-ready at Abington High School through this proposed policy.
And options, I think that's important. A big part of high school is growing up and knowing there's consequences for your actions, so that if you choose to be absent, you know, it's not just about making up the schoolwork, it's about also, you know, making up the seat time, and how do you do that?
Jessica, and each of their teachers has to sign off that they've.
At the beginning of the
At the
buyback
beginning of
and
the
the end,
buyback.
I would assume.
Yes, at the beginning and the end of the 5 days. And the 5 days doesn't necessarily have to be a Monday through Friday. It could be a Wednesday to a Tuesday, absolutely.
And the teacher doesn't have the opportunity to decline it, this is something they've embraced.
Yes, they've embraced.
But they would have to, I wouldn't say embrace it, but they would have to validate it at the end of the period, because if the participation wasn't there, or if it was just a moot point, then the buyback system becomes a farce.
Right.
Correct.
They would have to sign off.
Yes.
So they actually have to engage. Yeah.
There's one on your slide with the truancy.
Yes.
The loss of the school safety officer would be in 2012?
That was last year.
This year.
Yeah, for this year.
This year.
We cut it last year for this year, end of last year.
In absence of that, the principals and assistant principals and guidance in some cases have really picked up the slack, but it means time out of the school to make those connections of house visits. Quite often it's done after hours or before the bus picks them up or things like that. But we've picked up the slack, which is okay.
I think that's a good point in looking at the data. Yeah, you're seeing a difference. Well, that's what you had versus what you don't have. And even though we're picking it up, it still doesn't replace a person who's, you know, I always use their eye is on it. So there is a loss. Did you have a question?
It just, this is all, you indicated it's all gonna fall on you. How are you gonna be able to manage this? I mean, I know you're more than capable, but it's like, it's a lot of work.
You know what?
It's a
not-
great thing, but it's a lot of work.
Thank you. The onus is placed on the student with that buyback. It is up to them to take that opportunity. Now, I'd be honest with you, in the very beginning, I'm going to initiate, there's a lot of marketing with this initiative. You may have to make sure that the parents during the parents' night know this, field the phone calls, use constant contact, use the newsletter, constantly reinforcing that this option is available. So that the buyback coding is easy. I'm already doing these interventions. This actually will help me drive the interventions at particular times, which is just embedding them earlier, starting them earlier.
You'll have to get buy-in from the students for
Well,
coming
and
to school.
I think it's, you know, I hate to say it, marketing, you know, in a school building, but for everyone besides the incoming freshmen, this is totally new.
Yes.
So it's going to be a huge marketing effort to get them to realize it's even an option. This is something we can do. This will help.
Yes, I agree. Taking a look at the attendance data, you could take a look at that any way that you want to. Okay, there's pros and cons to using this data. This attendance policy, the way that is written, if we were to start it today, it would probably affect less than 20% of our total school population. Taking a look at unexcused absences, year-to-date, semester-to-date. But that 20% is also your multiple failures. The ones, it's just to take that 20% or less than 20% of that school population to bring them up to speed with that.
And Jesse's, APs do this. I mean, their life is discipline and attendance, because they intersect so closely. But she does a lot with X2 because dropouts don't just start at high school. You see, you know, through the whole grades, you know, the problem with attendance. And so even though it'll probably be work, just like anything new at the forefront, then it will, you know, pander off in terms of, hopefully, management. And we've been already discussing, okay, what can come off the plate while you're going through this? So that is something that we've been thinking about. But that still is your world. Attendance and discipline is a main part of an AP's world.
That's my world.
Let me remind you.
I had a couple just clarification questions. When we're notifying our parents by telephone and mail, is that regular mail, certified mail, what?
Regular mail, unless we see that there's been a trend that they haven't been picking it up, then it would go certified.
And then under the buyback option, since this is new, I think we should put what the buyback option actually allows you to do before we start talking about how a student's allowed to buy back 2 days. You see what I mean? Like the second paragraph to me should almost be the first. The buyback option allows the student the opportunity to buy back 2 days of blah, 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 as opposed to saying students are not allowed to buy back 2 days in a row. That's almost, to me, it seems a little like.
Give them the big picture and then get into the detail.
You know what I mean? Because when I first went over this.
Positive versus can't.
Yeah, when I went over, I'm like, let's talk about what it is first before we talk about what they can't do with it. That type of.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions?
I just have two small ones. As far as, do we define who immediate family is? Does that put you in, on excused absences, death in the family, parental written notice, certification of death, and the student's immediate family is required? Do we define what immediate family is?
It's not a change. We're not changing what that immediate family is to what it was in the past. It doesn't necessarily have to be household. It could be uncle, grandparent. We really, it's, yeah.
Judgment call.
Yes.
Of the administration.
Okay, all right. And then just on the number 3 there, just from a consistency, the number 2, we say parental written certification, and number 3, on the religious holiday, we say parent letter is required. Is there a difference?
For example, if it was a religious holiday, if we had,
They're just the terminology.
Consistency of language.
Yeah, just consistency, yeah. Yeah.
I think we have Mr. Haggard too from now on. Very good at it. You are.
so you're taking a look at medical situations, right?
Yeah, and then death in the family, it says parental written certification. And then
Parental
on religious
letter.
holiday, we just say parent letter. It's just a
So we'll have,
consistency.
what would you like it to read?
The first one.
Yeah,
Yeah, probably the parental.
written certification,
Certification?
Just consistency of language.
yeah.
Okay.
Certification of their religion? What? That, I think now we're crossing, that one gets a little too, I mean, I was thinking, parental, physician certification, absolutely. Maybe it's written certification of death that needs to be changed, but I don't think we can, certification of a religious, belief is a little bit.
Yeah, maybe I should clarify for you
Correspondence.
what
Well,
the
we weren't
medical
adding belief in
situation
it,
is.
we were just adding parental written certification.
Right, but if we're asking the school to give an excused absence due to a religious holiday, it's, obviously it's tied to their religious belief.
Yeah, but the parent has to write something certifying that
Written
this is
correspondence.
their. It's basically their letter certifying that, yes, we're part of this religious denomination or what have you.
For the medical situations, that has to be on letterhead from a doctor's office.
Right, yeah.
So there's the
There's a
physician
difference.
certification. Yeah. And we have, with the religious holidays, for example, if we were in school on Good Friday, and that child observes Good Friday and needs to, we have always allowed a parent letter in.
I think written correspondence from a parent covers it. I mean,
Yeah.
my children, I'd want the school I'd want written correspondence from me before they decided which holidays they would take off from school. That's okay.
No, I'm okay with that. I think the wording of written certification due to religion is too strong for me, I think. I think written correspondence is fine.
That works for me, yeah.
Okay. Parental correspondence.
Parental court, yeah.
Okay.
Now, will we do that on both 2 and 3? I mean, because certification seems kind of heavy.
Yep, so parental correspondence.
And that's why it
Yeah.
was when it started to get to the religion, I'm like, I think we're, getting a little.
Can you see anything else in those?
Do we have a lot of the vacation absences? Do you-
This is actually wonderful. I'm glad you brought that up, because sometimes we hear after the fact, because we call home on 5 days absent right now, just to make sure everything's okay, just to touch base. In fact, I called a parent from Aruba. She picked up the phone. I said, "Oh, where are you?" And she goes, "I'm in Aruba." Oops. Okay, thank you. And so they let us know after the fact. This actually, having it stated and worded this way, where they know the expectation is we don't advocate taking that vacation during school time. However, 3 unexcused absences in a term, they will know right off the bat what the expectation is.
Thank you. If we have no other questions, we're looking for motion to approve the Abington High Schools. I have one more question, I'm sorry, before we do this. How often is this updated on the web?
The student handbook, every year.
Okay. So we're looking for a motion to approve the revisions to the Abington High School Student Handbook for 2013-14 school year as presented or amended.
Make that motion.
Kathy, second.
A second.
Paul, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we gonna, Terry, field trip? Are you, or are we? No.
Yeah, we've
Oh,
got
okay.
it. You've
Sorry,
got
it's
it.
under
You've
your
got a
name.
copy of it in the packet. Jason Scott taking a group of AP US History students to tour the Newport mansions, talking about their lifestyle during the Industrial Revolution, with a 15-to-2 ratio of students to chaperones. Because it's an out-of-state field trip, we require school committee approval.
Any questions about that? For a motion to approve the out-of-state field trip for the grade 11 AP US History class to Newport Mansions, Newport, Rhode Island, on June 10th, 2013, as presented. Mike, second.
Second.
Paul, all in favor?
Aye.
Report of Superintendent of Schools.
Do you want to know Felicia? We've got Aaron under technology, right?
You want,
One
yeah,
more.
I'm fine, yeah. So actually, we're gonna, move to Technology
action.
Goal Action Plan.
That's okay, I apologize for the.
That's okay. And Aaron, how can you present?
Good evening. So I'm going to present to you the changes of the year 2013, the Abington Public Schools Strategic Action Plan for Technology. Excuse me. The first goal to maximize opportunities provided by technology to transform teaching and learning. New technology to be researched, recommended, and funded for purchase. The Technology Advisory Committee has been established. Is there a status? So this year we reestablished the Technology Advisory Committee. We've met periodically with that group throughout the year. This year we've been talking and researching technology and specifically one-to-one computing. The advisory committee is made up of members representing each of the district schools as well as a couple of building principals and representation of the special ed department as well. Establish one-to-one computing pilot program to evaluate the effects of one-to-one computing on teaching and learning. For example, one-to-one opportunities, one device per student. The Technology Advisory Committee, as I mentioned, has been researching one-to-one computing. We just recently had sent out a survey to help identify one-to-one computing needs. One of the things that the committee has done this year is define a vision really for the district in terms of one-to-one computing, what that means, identifying both what the objectives are and what it would actually bring to instruction and teaching and learning, as well as student achievement. So some of those things were access to information to allow students to produce products, linked that it would be linked to student achievement, that it would provide and expand collaborative learning opportunities and allow for multimedia publishing. What the vision is at this time, we define as a 3-year vision for one-to-one computing, to bring one-to-one computing to the district. At the pre-K and K level would be interactive tablet carts and interactive tables. Grades 1 through 3, lab opportunities, carts, and also interactive tables. Introducing in grades 4 through 6, true one-to-one opportunities on a daily basis, whether those are built into a particular curricular area like science or math, where students are attending a course every day where there's a one-to-one opportunity. And 7 through 12, hoping for a true one-to-one pilot where we have one device per student. The third action step to improve student-to-computer ratio. This is something we've been evaluating in terms of our ability to implement PARC testing. It's something that we've worked on since I've really come to the district in 05, 06, 06, 07, through capital improvements, and it's something we continue to work on, and hopefully through the new building project, if that comes to fruition, we'll continue to build facilities that help us support improved student ratios in terms to electrical capacity and really planning for future of tomorrow. Evaluate and update instructional software as appropriate. As Nicole spoke about iPads and the introduction of mobile computing devices and apps, and evaluating whether software is appropriate and tied to the curriculum. It's something that's ongoing. We just took a quick inventory this past week of iPad apps that are in use. With the district's iPads, there's over 1,000 applications that have been piloted or are being used with the iPads. One area in particular with ELL, students, the English language learners, iPads are being used to help students with learn things like phonics and some other English language learning skills and translation. Develop and implement technology curriculum in accordance with the Massachusetts Technology Literacy Standards. This has been an ongoing conversation that we've had in review of the standards with the curriculum planning and professional development planning committee. And like I said, technology is changing so fast, and we're not really just planning for the technology of today, but technology of tomorrow and what students will need to know in 5 years or in 6 years or in 7 years as well. Strategic goal to maximize, to implement appropriate professional development and instructional technology, provide differentiated professional development, allowing teachers to progress through levels of proficiency as defined by the Massachusetts Technology Self-Assessment Tool. So last year we did a fairly comprehensive study where we used the Mass TSAT data to kind of identify what some of the professional development needs were, and we identified the need for coaching and mentoring. So this year we have our technology liaisons providing professional development workshops, and individual school liaisons providing in-building follow-up. These are stipended positions. They work with staff on a consult basis and provide some professional development opportunities. So we're looking at bringing this group together with the Technology Advisory Committee next year to hopefully expand on our professional development offerings. With that said, much of what we've done and much of our focus this year has been on the new teacher or educator observation, supervision and observation model, and will be foreseeably for the next year or so as far as professional development. To add appropriate strategic objective, add appropriate instructional technology support. appropriately budget and hire instructional technologists. Included in the status is included in the preliminary budget 2013-2014. Appropriate budget for technology support personnel included in the preliminary budget 2013-2014. Provide coaching, mentoring, and following professional development opportunities is ongoing. The best with the capacity that we have using the technology liaisons, again, something we're looking to expand on next year. Provide regularly scheduled volunteer professional development. With all of the data initiatives and just listening to everybody that's presented before me this evening, really highlighting how all of the data initiatives we have coming together in terms of student intervention, tying it to attendance and achievement and student performance, as well as the new educator observation, supervision, and evaluation model, and the need to collect evidence and in support of SMART goals, really brings all of these things together. And we're drafting plans to provide support and professional development around these initiatives. Really are going to take a lot of our time next year as far as evaluating these tools and being able to use these tools to make decisions that inform instruction. We're looking to remove from the plan, use Massachusetts technology plan to annually review the district's current technology status. So we're going to continue to annually review the district's technology status. The Department of Early Childhood and Secondary Education has eliminated the Massachusetts technology plan. It's been replaced with the readiness assessment tool for Park. So that language is no longer appropriate. Again, the Mass Tech plan is replaced with the Tech Readiness for Park assessment. And as I've already mentioned, we've been evaluating our ability to administer the park electronically. Provide staff members the opportunity to attend technology conferences. One of the things that we've been promoting is staff to attend conferences such as the MassQ conference. The Massachusetts Computer Using Educators Conference happens in Foxborough every year. Brings thousands of educators from New England. And it's one of the things we're actually encouraging staff to do, to get out there and see how technology is being used in other districts and be able to bring that information back to our district. Establish a technology committee to annually review technology plans, technology-related policies, and recommended emergent technologies. The committee is established, and as I mentioned, we're doing research and evaluating where we're at. One of the things that we took part in this year was a grant through the North River Collaborative to look at creating regional partnerships in terms of technology support, in terms of data assessment. Through this grant, we are going to be piloting a student intervention data assessment module next year in conjunction with the implementation of our educator observation, supervision, evaluation module. Some other notable things that have happened through the generosity of PTOs and other support organizations in the district. We've installed interactive whiteboards, audio amplification systems, student response systems. We're able to, working with Verizon, able to increase internet connectivity from 70 megs to 300 megabytes and actually reduce our yearly expenses. And through a partnership with Abington Cable Access, upgrade our capacity around publishing media and content to the educational channel, which you may have noticed over the past couple weeks. So if anybody has any questions.
Aaron, on the apps you mentioned, are most of those free apps, or are they lower priced apps?
Well, some of them, are.
It's not Angry Birds.
Yeah.
They really do range in price. And one of the things that Apple, I think, has been good about is generating the feeling that everything's $1, right? That everything's $1.99. That's not always the case. There are a lot of free.
They'd say it is.
Yeah, there are a lot of free apps out there, but there are apps that cost, you know, a fair amount of money, and that's why we try to do our diligence around making sure they're educationally appropriate and that they're tied to the curriculum and our instructional program.
Aaron,
Only
once,
at one time.
I was gonna say.
It can be on all the devices. It's limited.
Yeah,
It can only be on one, some can be on 5.
It doesn't, and we're navigating through that as well. I mentioned with the ELL program, so we purchase programs from students. Sometimes it could be level 1, level 2, level 3. So one of the things that we've realized is that if we create an iPad that has the apps that are typically used for a level 1 student, and then when they become a level 2 student, that level 1 iPad comes back and goes to a level 1 student, so that we're continually leveraging our assets, so that we don't have apps on a level 1 apps on a level 2 student's iPad that are just not being used. So we're leveraging our assets by trying to move the iPads around and.
Special ed, Aaron is also, he works with specialized, programs for our special ed students who need, specific apps that work with service providers. So that's something else and that's for in-district and for our students that are placed out of district. So he works with our other out-of-district placements as well.
Sometimes too, I mean, we've seen just, personally, I've seen a lot of remarkable things in terms of assistive technology and, this type of technology, whether it's iPads or interactive tables, bring students together that have disabilities, that have difficulty communicating or working in groups, and have allowed students to have those experiences.
And obviously, the benefit of a computer is it'll move at the speed that the child wants to move, as quickly or as slowly, and go whatever direction in terms of interest they want to move in toward completing a project. So.
Absolutely, and as I've said 3 or 4 times, and we're not just thinking about technology for tomorrow, but really for 3 or 4 or 5 years out at a time.
Any other questions for Aaron? Look for a motion to approve the technology goal action plan as presented.
Make that motion.
Kathy, seconded. Ellen, all in favor?
Aye.
Now we will move on to the Board of Superintendent's list.
I'm up. Personnel information. I've accepted the resignation of Julie Laschik, effective July 1st, 2013, and granted Maureen Cronin an extended parental leave of absence in accordance with Article 24. Under other matters, just an announcement, and then with a recommended action to send a letter of congratulations to these 2 students, that the New England League of Middle Schools Scholar Leader Award went to Cassandra Mirando and Ben Duncan, grade 8 students from the Frodo Middle School. This award is given to middle school students in the Commonwealth who've demonstrated scholarship, leadership, and citizenship. I should say exemplary. Ms. Bailey, did you want to?
Yeah, I want to make a correction.
Oh, okay.
The award is presented by the New England League of Middle Schools and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Middle Level Educators.
You're out late, Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you, Executive Director of Comley. I apologize for leaving you off.
That's all right.
So I'd ask for a motion to send a letter of congratulations to Cassandra and Ben.
Make the motion.
Second. The Reed's Board of Directors. Annually, it's requested that school committees decide who will be their representative to collaboratives. The Massachusetts has just reworked their requirements for collaboratives and the way that they operate. In the future, I'll likely be asking you if you want to send me or another board member. At this point, Reed's is still operating with superintendent serving on this board. So I'm asking if you would appoint me for another year. I think what's gonna happen as the new regs shake out, again, there'll be a change in how I ask this. But for this year, Reed's is looking for, asking you to appoint me.
So we're looking for a motion to appoint Peter G. Schaefer to serve as the Abington Public Schools representative on the Board of Directors of Reed's Collaborative in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 4E, as amended by Chapter 43 of the Acts of 2012 for the 2013-14 school year.
I'll make that motion.
Mike, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we have a budget update for you. Thank you, Alicia. So in your packet, you should have a couple of sheets, the major increase page and then some brackets. But I'd like to start and focus on the PowerPoint update. So currently in the town of Abington, the leadership team at the town hall, which is Leo Provost, Sue Moquin, Jack Pistorino, and Dory Jameson, Leo Provost, who's the acting town manager, working with Felicia and I, have identified that the deficit for the FY14 town budget of $1,083,290. Now, sorry.
Last week that number changed by a couple $1,000.
Right. You may see, when we go to town meeting, you may see subtle differences between these numbers. It's because as we get closer to town meeting, different departments have made different requests and adjustments have been made. The town portion of this, and this is a mathematical framework, there's no policy around this, there's no charter on this, there's no agreement on what the split between the school and the town is. This is when you take all of the bills in the town and you divide them out, the town portion is 33.47 and the school department portion is 66.53. And so the consensus or the request from the town is that as we look at this deficit, that's how this deficit would be shouldered. And again, there's no policy, there's no charter, there's no agreement. This is a mathematical framework that's been proposed by the town. So, the town's, Felicia? Sorry, that's all right. Oh, sorry. Want me to click it? Thanks. So, the current prevailing thinking in the town, and Maureen Jansen, the chair of the Finance Committee for the town of Abington, just confirmed this in an email that I saw, is to take $531,134 from stabilization to pay the snow and ice bill from this last tough winter. And then another scenario would be not taking any money out of stabilization. Previously, we talked that there were 3 different scenarios. There are currently 2 that are being discussed. You would take the money from snow and ice, or not to and take 0. So in terms of the 2 scenarios, now watch me mess this up, Felicia. In terms of the 2 different scenarios, in the first scenario, the school department budget would be $19,584,248, which would mean a reduction of $367,345 to the school department to get to that number, based on that split that you saw on the earlier slide. Second scenario would be a budget of $19.1 million, $19,103,680, or a reduction of $720,704. However, you have to add to that, because it would involve layoffs, a factor of 36%, which actually increases that $720,000 number by $127,209 to cover the cost of unemployment. What is important to note, that is in 2009, our budget was $19.1 million, and we are still down 30 positions from where we were in 2009. The cost of our contracts, the cost of special education, and the cost of goods and services have continued to increase over this time period. So when it comes to considering cuts in staff, I wouldn't advocate for that in any way or fashion, and I'd be, my recommendation would be that we find a way to fund the school department at the $19.5 million rate to avoid layoffs and deeper cuts that I don't think it's appropriate for the school department in Abington to sustain, for just based simply on the needs of the children. And you know, from the presentations we had last night, the number of things we need to do to move forward. The area of technology is of great concern, but we also have elementary classrooms that are far too large. We have middle school students that are in study halls far too much. Any study hall is bad, and the amount of study halls they do there are well beyond what we find appropriate. And at the high school, we were just able to regain our status with NEASC in the high school accreditation with the last couple of positions we added. We were able to just turn that switch back out of that warning category to improve our status with the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. So in the first scenario, we are able to bridge the gap of $367,349 with some calculated risks. We increased the circuit breaker funding reimbursement. We've completed our collective bargaining for the most part, and we add a retirement offset where we save money bringing people in who are new to the system compared to the money we were spending for people who have just retired. I'll show you I could show you more specifically on the major increase page the dollars and the differences here to bridge that $367,349 gap. But one thing that we feel we need to do is, earlier in a budget presentation, I talked about the need for 1.5 special education teachers. We need to continue to support at our Beaver Brook a program that provides services to our children who are on the with autism, on the autism spectrum, and provide good service to those students in the district. And we need to provide service to students at the Frollo Middle School with dramatic special needs as we add a team chair model, which, you know, the team chairs are the people who are going to make sure that we have the best consistency across the district in terms of maintaining the IEPs. And we need their diligence, but in order to do that at the Frollo, we're going to take somebody out of the mix working with that needy population, and we need to replace them with the 0.5 person. So what we've done is we've reduced the out-of-district placement costs by this amount. So we've moved that money out of one budget into this budget, this salary budget. We believe that this is the best way to provide service to our special education children and also keep the costs down in the district in the long run. Scenario 2 is really difficult to even talk about because I can't imagine taking 11 to 12 people out of the Abington Public Schools, which is what we would need to do to bridge that gap. There'd be significant impacts with the secondary program. Again, I would tell you that our NEASC status would likely return to warning. I'm being very careful with my wording because you don't know until NEASC puts you there. But you have to report those things to NEASC anytime there's a substantive change in your program, and there would be a substantive change. The middle school program would suffer in terms of increasing the number of study halls for our students, and the class sizes at the elementary level, I fear, would certainly climb again, which I can't imagine it happening. Again, the increase there of the $127,000 is because you're paying for unemployment costs. So for there's two ways to think about it. The rule of thumb is that every time you lay off 2 people, you have to lay off a third to cover the unemployment costs at, again, 36 cents on the dollar. Some of those people will get jobs when they're laid off if this occurs, but our experience has been for every 2 you lay off, you have to lay off a third to cover the costs. So it's a very, I don't know if the word is regressive cut is the right word, because you don't actualize the savings dollar for dollar you think you would get. You're spending $1.36 to gain $1 in savings, maybe to try to frame it that way. So I feel so strongly that we wouldn't be able to shoulder this cut appropriately after we are still down 30 people from where we were in 2009. That as a backup plan for the town meeting, I think the school committee would need to be prepared that if the consensus that we have with the other town boards right now that we're going to take the money out of stabilization to pay the ice and snow bill, that the school committee would need to be ready to make a motion to remove $353,364 from stabilization for the school department. That would require a 2/3 vote at town meeting in order to do that. I'm hoping that I'd never ask you to stand at the town meeting and make that motion, but in terms of protecting the system, it's a contingency that it would be worth exploring or trying to save the system from further cuts. We're going to be, Felicia and I are going to be going to a review of the warrant on Thursday at the town hall, and we could certainly get the exact language that would be required to make that motion should that need to happen. As you know, we meet prior to the town meeting, and so you're in session at the town meeting. We stay in session at the town meeting, so if you have to make a vote or make a decision at the town meeting, you're still in session. Yeah, the good news is that the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen are on board with the first scenario. So again, I think it's unlikely that I'd need to ask you to do this. Now, if that failed, it would put, to take the money out of stabilization, if scenario 1 fails, if the school department, school committee standing and saying we want to take the money out of stabilization to save the schools fails, then that would put us in a situation where we have to find the money in other departments, which is a terrible thing to think about, or it would put the town in an override position, which this late in the year, given the situation, would also be I'll just call it a bad situation to be in. So.
I have one question.
Yeah.
What is the actual deficit that's realized in scenario 2? You have 720 plus the 127. Would you offset that with the 367? Okay. All right.
Well, actually, the 720 minus
Okay.
Right, because the 127 is an addition to cover
the
unemployment. That becomes part of the deficit because of the way you're saving the money. Or it becomes added to the deficit because it costs you more to save that money through unemployment.
So there wouldn't be any unemployment at that level, even though you're still going to run a deficit at 353?
Correct. That's
Correct.
the next for the circuit scenario 1, circuit breaker.
So you have a major increase page in your packet where you can see under programs of other districts, special education tuitions, and the circuit breaker estimated at 70%, an additional circuit breaker offset. Felicia, you want to spend a second on that piece? Oh, wait, let me see if people have questions on it. On the circuit breaker, originally it was estimated
55% was estimated at 70%. So that's that $24,000 difference. The additional circuit breaker line underneath that is this year, if you remember, our circuit breaker percentage for reimbursement has been really all over the place since day one, including 9C cuts that the governor enacted in the fall that reduced the percentage of reimbursement. And then last week, we got notice that he reversed the 9C cuts. So in fact, we're going to be getting more back in circuit breaker in our last payment, which is actually the last day of the fiscal year, than we had been anticipating.
Right, it's important to highlight, as Felicia said, it's our fluctuation in circuit breakers because the state has been moving the number around. It's nothing that we've done.
Correct.
And the calculated risk that we're taking by closing the gap in scenario 1 is that there is no fudge factor, there's no encumbrance, there's no cushion, probably cushion is the best word to use, for what could happen in special education with expensive placements. A student moving into the district, or from another state, or a student that we currently have in the Abington Public Schools going out of the district can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars that we can't anticipate needing to spend on them. So
That's really the most of all our kind of funding pieces. That's the most involved.
So what that would mean is, if we did have an event like that, and you can't anticipate it. It's like predicting the weather. It depends on where people live or what a child might need in the district. You know, we'd have that bill. We'd certainly make sure we maintain privacy, but we'd be able to say to the town, there was no way to anticipate this increase in our special education
And it may
budget.
not be one big bill. It may be a number of smaller bills that we get to that point that, you know, and again, especially with circuit breaker being, really seems like the card, that's the one, there's a number of funding sources that come to the schools, such as Chapter 70. That actually goes to the town, and then it's part of the town's money from the state. Circuit breaker gets, is directly back to the school, so that is a piece that over the last few years, they really have used to help balance, I think, the state moving the percentage up and down.
Do you have any questions that people might have?
So just the plan for the, taking the money out of the stabilization.
Yes.
Is, that going through, the town feels very strongly that after July 1st, the money will be there to put it back in.
Great point. That's the thinking, that there'll be available free cash in the fall, that money can be replenished to the town's checking account to cover those expenditures. But it requires a 2/3 vote at town meeting to take it out on June 10th.
And I think it's also, the feeling is that there will be that money.
Right.
But you don't know that until free cash is certified. So no one can, should, or will say it absolutely will be there. But it's definitely the feeling that
And the good news is that it seems that there's consensus with the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. This would be a plan, rather than having departments fight on town floor, which we've seen before too, which is not productive. So, questions? Thank you. Under dates to remember, Thursday, May 30th is the Senior Awards Evening at Abington High School at 7 p.m. On Friday, May 31st, is a graduation rehearsal and senior picnic at Abington High School at 10 a.m. Saturday, June 1st is the Abington High School graduation. Please note the change from previous years. That will be held at 10 a.m. at the high school. On Monday, June 3rd, the underclass awards at Abington High School at 7:30 a.m. On Tuesday, June 4th, the Green Wave Boosters meeting at Abington High School at 7 p.m. Thursday, June 6th, the Abington Education Association retirement party, spring social event. On Tuesday, June 11th, the music parents meeting at Abington High School at 7 p.m. Tuesday, June 18th is the next regularly scheduled school committee meeting at the town hall. That again, is that I'm sorry, at the town hall. Yeah, but our next meeting is actually gonna be June 10th at 6:30. Okay. And then Wednesday, June 19th is the last day for students in Abington, barring any once-in-a-lifetime storms between now and the end of the school year. I knocked on wood. Any other dates, Teresa, Felicia, or Dirtna? Anything else? Okay.
Report about subcommittees? Catherine's going to do
Yeah.
this,
Catherine Bailey.
Yes, last week, May 21st, Peter and I went into the MASC Legislative Advocacy Day. We had the opportunity to meet with someone in Representative Deal's office, as well as with Senator Keenan. Explained to them the financial issues caused by some of the mandates coming down from on high and the town's situation. They were sympathetic. We did hear in both offices, well, there's only so much in our pot at the state, and I explained very carefully that there's even less in our pot in the town. And they were sympathetic, they listened, and we tried, basically.
I think the legislature has been as supportive as education, maybe not as they could be. The funding equation we've talked about before for Chapter 70, I think, is flawed for Abington compared to what other communities get based on need. But I can't say that they haven't been trying to pump money at a tough time in the state into education. I know they have been trying, especially through Circuit Breaker, because what they figured out is that money goes directly to the school system rather than in an aid package to the town that the town can reduce your budget by, as long as they stay above foundation. So they listened. They said they'd do what they can.
Right.
Thank you for going, Kathy. Move on to the report of Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Personnel. Thank you. The first item is consideration of the proposed job description for the Elementary Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. You have this in your handouts coming around. And basically this has been a budgeted position that has existed in another form, and we are changing the format to basically adapt and include evaluations, et cetera, in this job description. So you'll see that as you go through that the whole new educator evaluation system will now allow for other evaluators, and included in this will be the person that we currently have is not evaluating, but will be in terms of the job description for the future. And that is the biggest change in terms of job descriptions. So we would like the committee to review it and then motion to approve the description. I know you've had the opportunity to read it. Do you want me to be specific? It's really just basically looking at elementary curriculum instruction, assessment, and everything that comes with that, evaluating staff as well, and really working closely with our preschool all the way through grade 6, and then the continuum with our directors and our department heads at the secondary level.
Is there a typical salary range in the going market?
That's what we'll be doing during executive sessions. We'll be discussing that.
We're going to be, yeah, we're looking, it's likely going to be at the assistant principal dollar value.
I think it would be helpful, Dipna, we all had the other one in our packet. So
Yeah.
if you can just highlight the change, that, you know, if you had questions from it.
From the one we talked about this morning.
Yeah.
What are we changing this?
The one that you received, Peter, you worked on last week, and the one today. So I'm going to have you help me with my guesstimates.
It was language around, one of the paragraphs in the previous one had language around the association and collective bargaining. And because this position's coming out of Unit A, that's no longer necessary. That was the big change.
So you see negotiable versus
That was already in
teacher
there, but I
contract.
think there was another line in the previous one that we
In
gave to
accordance
last
with the
week.
teacher's contractual
Right,
obligation.
Correct.
The teacher's
Yep.
contract, you took it out.
We
You
took
took
that
that
out
out.
because it's not in accordance with the teacher's contract.
But the responsibilities of this person did not change.
Correct.
Correct.
Except number 7, if you look at number 7, supervises and evaluates teachers under the direction of the elementary principals in accordance with the Abington Public School Educator Evaluation System. That's the major change, is that just because of the new, we're finishing with the negotiation of that educator plan, and as you know, that we will be up and running September, right when school starts, with the new model, and so this person will be a part of that process.
And the only other thing that was taken out was on the top of page 2 of the old one, it said evaluation of the role, and that,
Right.
that was something that was in there as so that we just.
Well, that's something we're changing on all job descriptions, because we're in the process of updating, and that's just a language that's been used for a long time, so we're just changing the language. So you'll be hearing that as we move forward in terms of more job descriptions, as we're going through the negotiations process. Okay, so any other questions on this? Then I would ask for a motion. Please approve the job description for the elementary director of curriculum instruction and assessment.
I'll make that motion.
Favor? Thank you. I also want to thank Denise Boyd and Bernie Darcy for their presentation this evening on the wellness policy. I thought it was a real rich conversation. It's actually great when we have these presentations for people coming to school committee, because you can hear and feel their passion for their work. And so they have the specifics of the nuances of all the most recent regulations. And that's something that I know Bernie has been working on, because that has been really fast and furiously changing in terms of the regulations through food services. And then Denise has been doing a really nice job, not only with our programming here for PE and wellness, but she's also doing the extras with the North River Collaborative, and really accessing other grants that helps offset funding for us here in Abington. But you never ever have a grant that doesn't come with work or without work. You have to have extra work. And so Denise picks that up, and that's a benefit to us. So I want to thank both of them for that. And then ask if you would motion to approve the revisions of the Abington Public Schools Wellness Policy as
They did.
presented.
We already did it.
Oh,
We
great.
did it.
I missed it.
I also think one of the things that Denise mentioned was the PE position and the funding for that, and that is included in our, part of our funding cliff, the grant funding.
Right.
From the Strata grant and the ARRA and jobs.
Great. The next piece is professional development. You know that every month throughout the year, I basically give you an update on the professional development that we offer through the in-service, so that families are aware of what we're doing during those half-day in-service days. This we did in May 1st. We had a half-day in-service with Center School focused on the professional development needs assessment survey and screening preparation. At the Beaver Brook, they focused on data teaming, and then the Massachusetts teacher evaluation system. At the Woodsdale, we had the data teaming and the Massachusetts teacher evaluation system. At the Furley Middle School, they did grading and reporting student progress workshop that was done by a consultant. And then at Abington High School, they focused on the Common Core State Standards in Park and creative thinking. So a lot of this you've been hearing throughout the year, because they're in education, there's major shifts going on. And so there's a lot of professional development that is needed to adhere to the changes in the regulations. So that'll be something that you'll also hear as a theme moving forward. And we will be continuing with our 8 half-days and the 1 full day for professional development next year. So any questions on that? That's just an update. Great, thank you. And then the last one is the exciting one. Every year we have the announcement of the nominees and then the winner for the Chester J. Millett Junior Outstanding Teacher Award program. And this year we want to congratulate the nominees. We had Andrea Chu from the Beaver Brook, Angela Daly from Beaver Brook, Donna Flynn from Beaver Brook, Karen Henderson from Beaver Brook, Kathleen Miquel from Beaver Brook, Robin Gilpatrick from Woodsdale, Mary Williams from Frollo, and Dr. Gonzalez, Elizabeth Gonzalez from Abington High School. And we have already posted, I'm sure you're aware, is that Mary Williams is the 2013 Chester J. Millett Jr. Outstanding Teacher Award winner, and she's very excited about it. So she will also, at our opening day back, we will also award her and recognize her. And what's really nice is we have a committee that working with me, you know, in terms of determining who is going to be the Outstanding Teacher Award. And it's really nice when you have staff as well as students and families that are really taking the time to write about their teacher and for certain reasons. So it's always hard to make that decision, but it's exciting. It's exciting to be recognized. So Mary is very excited about it. She had her grand entrance on the day of our special education staff meeting. She came in late intentionally so that we could all give her that. She has a great sense of humor. So congratulations to all the nominees and to Mary Williams. Thank you. Motion to send a letter of congratulations to all the nominees and award recipient, Mary Williams.
Make that motion.
Second.
Second. Great. Thank you.
Move on to the report of Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance. Alicia, and I think Kathy's going to do the update, right?
Yes, last week we had the opportunity to get together the members of the building committee and the curriculum leaders. And we worked, discussed the changes in delivery of education for the future, and actually had the opportunity to kind of bubble out different parts that would be needed in a building in order to deliver education in the future, which is entirely different from the way we look at education today. And it was a great experience, I think, for everybody, and it was nice for the two groups to come together, since we're both going to have to basically sign off on what the study determines. It was nice to be able to share ideas and to work together as a group.
We'll be having another session tomorrow to more complete the work in the curriculum leadership side, and then present to the school building committee, hopefully in the next meeting, what the kind of the culmination of the educational plan work.
New business, establishing next school committee meeting dates. Before we do this, do you have anything you want?
Yep, just under informational, if I could just highlight to you quickly, and you know, if people have questions about it, I'll answer them. Chapter 432, an act relative to access of epinephrine in schools, and 105 CMR 210. What's happened is the legislature passed a regulation allowing students with asthma and food allergies to carry the medications that could save their lives with them in school. In that law, it's suggested that you follow the Department of Public Health's guidelines and recommendations on administering that, because we're talking about the EpiPens that carry adrenaline and a needle, and we've got students at the upper grade levels who are certainly mature enough to carry those and could potentially save their lives, and then you wouldn't probably allow early elementary students to carry those in the schoolhouse, at least without some very substantial plan for them through the nurse's office. And so really, the law says that you will not prohibit a student with a life-threatening allergy to carry the medications that they need, and then the Department of Public Health gives guidance on how to administer that in school and put a policy together. We're not ready to offer you a policy to consider yet. This is all, actually, Mike Kurowski brought this to my attention. And this is all, I'll tell you, as we look at other school systems and the policies they have about this, they really don't have policies around this in other school systems. We've been given a couple of exemplars by the Department of Public Health. I know, Mike, you've looked at a couple of different sites. And even though we don't have a policy for you around this tonight, the law trumps any policy we have. So should the situation arise that we need to do something with one of our students, we would use the law and we would use this guidance until we have a policy district-wide to present to you. And really what the Department of Public Health says is the policy really needs to be something about your nurses creating this plan with these families for the children and approving these plans. The doctor writes a note and the school nurse approves it. Again, and that's how you determine at the early elementary level you don't have kids with needles and epinephrine, and at the upper grades you could with a student depending on the need. DPH has done a lot of research on this and best practices around this, and so we would just follow their guidance should the need occur prior to us bringing a policy district-wide.
Do we feel change in policy for us will happen before the start of school for 13-14?
At the beginning, either at the start of school or at the beginning of the school year, we could always create an addendum and just publish it. So, but the research of different schools' websites about what they have, I mean, a lot of systems don't have anything. We want to make sure we get the right language and do this responsibly. So.
And you'd have nurses involved in that process. And I think this is a good example of, Mike read it, and this was not widely advertised for us in terms of when it came to Mike and to Peter, we haven't heard about it. And so we all, asked legislators, asked DPH, et cetera. So it was a good example of, him asking the right questions and communicating it, and then us moving forward. But it is something that you would, of course, have the nurses involved in. So thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Oh, with a daughter who has nut
That's one.
allergies, who needs an epinephrine pen.
Yeah, that's great.
You've got correspondence here from the committee with regard to the budget in your packet. I think you've all seen a copy of that. I sent it to you in an email. Reed's Collaborative is inviting you on June 13th for a meeting from 7 to 9 to get more information on Reed's Collaborative if you're interested. They're going to hold one meeting for the different member school systems and districts. Correspondence about background checks. We'll be implementing the fingerprinting plan, and until the state has a plan on how that all works, we're giving all new hires a letter saying that they're aware that this is in place and it's coming. And you can see that DESI approved our tech plan. The rest of it's pretty self-explanatory.
Any questions for Peter on that stuff? So we are looking for a motion by roll call vote to move into executive session and not to return to public session to discuss negotiations around new teacher evaluation system. Mike, myself.
Aye.
Thank you.